We're good.
We're live?
Yeah.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Good afternoon, good evening, good middle of the night for those of you on the other side. Here we are with day 3. The first thing I want to do is I just want to say thank you. It's really been a lot more fun recording this program with you guys here helping out. And so that's really been a great deal of fun. And it's added a little bit of extra life to the whole thing. It's also given us a lot of live feedback for the way we'll end up editing. So it's been very valuable having here. And I think in the future when we create products like this, we may well invite you to attend again. Let me know if you'd like to do that. So that'd be really great. In the meantime, let me give you a bit of a kind of a recap of what's going to happen today. The first thing is I already recorded a Facebook Live and kind of announced this, but Quentin, in case you didn't see the Facebook Live and you're here now, I just want to say thank you so much for the comprehensive notes and sharing them so freely with everybody. And as you probably saw in the Facebook Live, we're giving you a free copy of Business Freedom 365, which is a $5,000 program. So I'm hoping you're going to enjoy that rather a lot. I'm sure you will. And today what's going to happen is we're going to record 2 segments. We're going to record a segment on how to create a compelling call to action. And ultimately, we're going to talk a little bit about the psychology relative to making it really easy for people to transact with you. Remember, everything that we've done so far is about groundwork. It's about foundation. It's about leading your prospect psychology to a natural conclusion that they would like to transact with you in whatever the transaction might be, buying your product or service, investing in your company, voting for you, whatever type of influence you're trying to have. Now, the next step is going to be about creating a compelling call to action. We're going to talk about some of the core or key components of doing that and doing it in a way that really makes it really easy for people to want to transact with you and to feel good about it. And then we're going to record the final segment. And the final segment is going to be a full recap of the entire process of inception marketing. And so if you missed sections, if you needed some refinements, that segment's going to be really valuable to you. And so we're going to record that live as well. Then we're going to take a little bit of a break, maybe 5 minutes as we have been. And then after the break, we're going to do something. We just decided to do this as a team here today. Is that one of the things that we often hear from people is that when they suddenly try an inception marketing campaign and they suddenly get twice as many leads or twice as many or 3 times as many sales as they were before, it can often put a little bit of strain on their business. I mean, that happens, right? Yeah, a lot of times people think that having a huge explosion of sales is going to solve all their problems, when actually what it does is just changes the kind of problems they have. And so we're going to do a little segment after the break on business freedom. And what that means specifically is on how to start building robust systems around you. We're going to show you some key principles of creating a company that can handle a massive explosion and increase in sales. So that'll be a lot of fun. And then we're going to go into some Q&A like we were doing yesterday and live interaction. A number of people wrote in some proposals, and so we've selected some people, and we're going to invite them in, and you're going to get to see me do a live coaching with them on how to improve their targeting, on how to create better engagement, on how to tighten up their inceptive story delivery, and maybe even how to help them make a more compelling offer and set buying criteria. So this is going to be very valuable, first of all, for the people that we selected to do this with, but it's also going to be very valuable to observe. As you've probably noticed, when I'm answering one person's question, it gives you more refinement. And so I think that section is going to be really valuable to you as well. So get your comments and questions flowing in now so that when we got that section happening, we're ready to go. And I will obviously, as we have been, when I'm finished the section on call to action, we'll do a short Q&A window there as well before we move into the next module. So are you guys ready? All right, sounds good. Are we all good technically? Okay, good. All right. So we were going to jump into, this is module, okay, it would be useful if I'm going to just leave the set for a moment. I just want to check this introduction are useful. How's that? I'll just leave the set for a moment. All right. So we are going to move now into, well, let's actually, before we go into the recording mode, let's just remember what we've done so far, just briefly. We'll do the full recap later in the session, but we've talked about in module 1, we talked about overall target markets, getting really clear about at the highest strategic level, everybody that we'd like to transact with or everybody that we'd like to influence. Then what we did is we said, all right, but in order to reach those people, we need to subdivide that. So we subdivided that into specific ideal target markets. And what we're really trying to do there is develop the tightest psychographic groups that we can, specific thought forms, specific goals and challenges, so that we are able to write copy, create videos, and create marketing materials that will go directly to them. Then we went to module 3, where we did psychological evaluation of those ideal target markets in order to be able to create that targeted messaging even better. Then we talked about, in module 4, we talked about market research, the importance of doing market research, and not the old style market research where you're studying the market to see if your product is going to get acceptance, but market research about the market itself. What's going on in the market? What's going on for your prospects? Are there new technologies on the way? Is there new legislation on the way? Is there cool government studies or university studies that have turned up information that might act as good hooks and smoking guns that could be used for engagement or for the building of credibility and authority? Then we moved on from there to module 5, where we talked about how to create engagement through an engagement pitch. In other words, the headline or the advertisement for our marketing, the promise, right? We're making some sort of a promise to address something that is on the minds of our prospects. Then we went to module 6, where we talked about the delivery of inceptive stories, either as a holistic story that had conversion data in it, information, emotional roller coaster, statistics, and details that might lead someone to a logical conclusion that they want to do business with you, or a bullet point form system also tied together with stories. And we talked about why we use stories for that, because memory is only created with emotion. Emotion is the glue that fixes memory in. And so in our marketing, we want to make sure that we're engaging emotion. And then we talked about module 7, where we're going to teach them how to buy. In module 7, we're talking about buying criteria. In effect, creating a circumstance where we're really solidifying their logical reasons for wanting to transact with us, and then their logical reasons for not wanting to transact potentially with one of your competitors. Now we're going to go into module 8, which is creating a compelling call to action, and module 9, which will be the full recap of the whole program for the layered training approach. So that's where we are, and now we're going to move in and we're going to jump into module 8, and we're going to talk about compelling offers. So are we all good? Yes, cameras are on, rolling. You guys are good. You're good. All right. Again, guys, thanks for being here. Seriously, this is very cool. All right. Hi, welcome back. I'm Eric Edmonds, and this is Inception Marketing Video Training. And now we're on module 8, where we're going to talk about compelling calls to action or compelling offers. What we've done so far is, through a strategic process, prepared the market or laid the groundwork for people to already be curious. This is a very, very important thing to talk about before we even get into compelling offers. You see, one of the challenges in the sales world, in the marketing world, in the influence world, is that when you are obviously selling or obviously attempting to influence, it almost becomes difficult. In a sense, if you are pushing, then you might meet resistance. I'll never forget sitting in my grade 10 physics class with Miss Burke, my physics teacher, and she walked up to the wall and she said, if I push on this wall, and I push on this wall with 10 pounds of pressure per square inch, how much is the wall pushing back with? And I'm like, it's not pushing back, it's a wall. Right? And what she was trying to do is teach us the fundamental law of physics that for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And so she's saying, no, because if it wasn't pushing back, because if it wasn't pushing back, then it would be moving. And so it took me a few days to wrap my mind around the idea of this, but I now recognize this is a really powerful lesson in every case. Whenever we are pushing, we are creating the possibility or the inclination toward resistance. And so the old world of selling, which required high pressure, push, 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 often generates a level of resistance. And so what Inception Marketing is about is reducing that resistance before you ever get to any call to action. So for example, with a lot of our programs, we have people simply interacting with us, interacting with great educational content we produced, and as a result of that saying, I would like to take the next step. Tell me more. And I want you to think about how powerful that is. Remember that even salespeople with big resistance, even people who are not salespeople who have resistance to selling, they immediately relax and feel better when a prospect starts asking buying questions. Check in with yourself. Isn't this true? If you are trying to get some, if you're trying to sell something, you're trying to influence somebody, and they start seeming like they're aligning with what you're doing, they start asking you questions like, how much is it? When can I get a hold of it? What's the warranty like? If they start asking questions like that, don't you immediately start to feel better? Of course you do, because what's happening at that point is you realize instead of it being a competitive resistance thing, what's happening is you begin to align together. You're beginning to think in the same way, and so it's a very, very different feeling. That's what inception marketing is about. That's why we get that's why we get so strategic about identifying an ideal target market, really looking at their psychology and then speaking to them in their frequency. We speak to them about what they're interested about. We try to solve their problems for them so we can earn the credibility and authority and lead them naturally to the conclusion they want to transact with us. Then, very often, at the end of your sales funnel or your sales conversation or your live presentation or your video or your television advertisement or your radio ad or whatever campaign it is that you're using, you will find very often that if the client is not already ready to buy, they are closer, they're warmer, they're asking the right questions. That's what we want. Now, that said, what we also want to do is release any resistance we have to feeling resistance about selling. You'll remember very early on in this program, we talked about this. You remember my friend Dan trying to convert me, right? When I said to him, hey, stop trying to convert me to your way of thinking, he's like, remember, I can't do that because I love you and I fully believe in my product. In his case, his product was a religion, but he was so firm in his before that nothing could stop him from wanting to keep saving me. So what we want to do before we get anywhere near trying to compel someone to action, before trying to compel someone to action or trying to get them to take action, is we want to get really clear on the rewards for them in taking action and the consequences for them in not taking action. Unfortunately, what happens with a lot of salespeople is their thinking is a whole lot more about them, how they're going to feel if they don't get the sale, how they're going to feel if they do get the sale, how they're going to make a commission if they do get the sale, how they're not going to pay the rent if they don't make the sale. I'm kidding a little bit, but what happens for a lot of people when they're selling is that they're more concerned with their outcome than they are with the client's outcome. There's a television show called Better Call Saul. You may be familiar with it because it's a spin-off from Breaking Bad. And there's a classic scene. One of the great things about both of those shows is that their camera people are incredible. The angles that they use and the lighting, and they're very good at really relaying emotion in the way they use cameras in those shows. And there's one scene in particular that really hammers home the point that I'm trying to make here, where Saul, who's, fundamentally in his heart a good guy, but also willing to cut a lot of corners. And he's sitting with a couple and trying to convince them to hire him as a lawyer. And he's sitting there at the table with them because he has approached them preemptively for a legal battle that they might have. And he's sitting there trying to convince them to sign on the contract now because he's got to pay the rent. And he's got to pay the rent because they've already framed that in the show for you. He's out of money and he needs these clients. And so you know what's happening? He's sitting there and he gives them all the spiel, the features and benefits, all the normal kind of selling stuff. And then he turns the contract around and he slides it over to the husband. And the husband's got the pen in his hand. And it looks like the husband's getting ready to sign. And then all of a sudden the camera zooms in really nice and tightly. And it zooms in really tightly on the lawyer's face. And Saul's face is there. And you can see that he's quivering just a tiny little bit. He's nervous because he's nervous about the meaning of the sale to him. He's not nervous for the client. He's nervous about it because he needs the money. And by the way, here's an interesting little lesson in that scene, is that the husband didn't notice that, but the wife did. The camera zooms in on her and the wife sees these little ticks in his face and she moves her hand down and pushes the husband's pen away from the contract. And she says, you know what? I think we're going to sleep on it. You see, what's happened there is that the client has picked up the wrong resonance. And the resonance was the guy was selling for him, not for them. If he was genuinely there to save them, if he was genuinely there to serve them, then what would have happened is the wife would have been, yeah, go ahead and sign. Because women have the radar. They have the intuition. And they will pick up on these tiny little things. So it's really, really key that when you're in a conversation with somebody that involves trying to move them to action, whether that's investing in your company, coming to work for you, hiring you, buying a product or buying a service from you, voting for you in an election, whatever it is, you need to be very clean about the way you're communicating that call to action so that they know that that call to action is ultimately about supporting them. Yes, you may benefit from it, and everybody knows that, but the question is what's primary to you? And so if you've really handled that, then it's time for us to talk about what needs to happen to make a compelling call to action for people. So in order to understand that, let's take a look at what causes people resistance. Well, if somebody has resistance buying from you, voting for you, investing in you, then what they're really concerned about is, are they going to get what they're investing in? That's what they're really concerned about. What they have is a, in a sense, a crisis of confidence. Maybe they have a lack of confidence in themselves, or they have a lack of confidence in you. Here's what I mean. Let's say you're selling a product to them. Well, they look at that product and they go, wow, that product might solve a bunch of issues for me. But then what they might have is a lack of confidence in their ability to use the product, either because of their skill or because of their confidence or because they bought stuff before and didn't use it. And they're like, I'm not sure if I'll really use the product. So there's one challenge. Then the next challenge they have is that they might actually have a crisis of confidence relative to the product itself, that even if they did use it, will it work for them? Right? So one of the things that we need to do is make it absolutely clear to our prospects that we reverse the risk as best possible. Reverse the risk, take the risk away. So you'll notice with a lot of the stuff that we offer, a lot of our programs, like some of our live events, I'll give you an idea of how we reverse the risk. If you ever wanted to come out to our 5-day platform speaking program, our speaking academy, or our 5-day business freedom experience, here's how we reverse the risk. Come to the program, do the program. If the program doesn't blow you away, we'll give you your money back. Notice that we didn't talk about your satisfaction. Notice that we didn't say, well, it's a satisfaction guarantee. We said, no. Come to the program, do the program. If it does not blow you away, that's your measurement, then we'll give your money back. There is no risk. We've taken the risk away. And why are we doing that? Because we have that high a degree of confidence in the program. And I can tell you, in all the years we've been offering that program with both of the offering, and I can tell you, in all the years that we've been offering that guarantee with those programs, we have never had somebody come in and look for a refund request because we deliver at the highest level, as I hope you're seeing from this program. So how could you do that? Now, there are some times when that kind of a risk reversal is too much. You don't want to offer that kind of a risk reversal. In fact, even with some of our programs we won't. Maybe you're familiar with our company, WildFit. Well, at WildFit, we do not offer that program quite like that. We still offer risk reversal, but we change a little bit because in the diet space, they have to take a little bit of action, right? It's not like this live event where I'm controlling the environment and I can make sure that they have the breakthrough. Many times our clients are doing WildFit completely on their own. They're just watching videos, and sometimes they're watching videos and working with a coach, and sometimes they're in a large group where they're watching the videos and they have me as a coach or one of our master coaches. So there's some action steps they need to take. So we offer them a guarantee. Do the program, and if you don't get the results you want, we'll give your money back. But there's a caveat on what do the program means in this case. Do the program means watching a minimum number of the videos and having a minimum level of interaction with the program. If you do those things, like for example, there are daily check-ins. People can check in with how they feel that day, what they've been eating that day, what their measurements are, and so on. We don't make them do the daily check-ins. We just say, look, as long as you do one daily check-in a week, just to show that you're taking it seriously. Then after that, if the program doesn't work for you, well, we'll give your money back. So one of the key components in creating a compelling offer is to create as much risk reversal as you can. And guarantees are not the only way to create risk reversal. Another way is social proof. Social proof. I mean, these days, the world is very open about communication. And so what you want to do is make sure that you're cultivating the very best social proof that you can. If you allow feedback on your sites, that's great. But what is even better than feedback on your websites, because that looks like maybe you cultivate it, is public feedback, like on a Yelp page or TripAdvisor or on Facebook. If you were to go and take a look at our WildFit page on Facebook, you'd find, as it is today, by the time you watch this video, it could be better, it could be worse, I don't know. I can tell you that as it is of today, we have many, many, many reviews on that page, and we have a 4.9 star rating. And that's despite 2 competitors giving us 1-star ratings because they write like their programs more than ours. A 4.9 star rating. So what that does is it creates a huge amount of risk reversal for a prospect because they go to that page and they go, look at all these happy clients. Does this make sense? And so there's a number of different ways that you can do that. You can do it through reviews, you can do it through testimonials, you can do it through testimonial videos, and you can do it through direct reference. I'll give you such a great example of this. In my first company, we were selling mobile computers, data capture solutions, And we were going after some very big contracts after about our 5th year in business. I noticed something, and that was that our cash flow was very up and down, up and down. And I didn't really like the down part of our cash flow. And so what I wanted to do was go up and soft, so that when we did have a month that wasn't so good, that we had a baseline level of revenue all the time. So we transferred the business model slightly and started taking on annualized maintenance contracts, where a company would pay us a fixed annual fee and we would fix their equipment all year long. The beauty of this was that in the summer, when everything slowed down, they still had to pay their fees. We might not have a lot of work to do at that time, but they still paid their fees. When Christmas came along in the retail world and they were very, very busy, their fees were still flat. We were very busy, but we had flattened cash flow. So it was a really good decision in our business. And one of the challenges was we needed to convince these big retailers and these big logistics companies that they could trust us. We were just this little company, we 25, 30 employees. We needed to convince them that they could trust us. So how could we do that? Well, the first thing we did is we did it through doing what we say we're going to do. Right? I mean, just be that simple. When somebody buys something from you, you deliver it when you say you're going to deliver it, you deliver it at the quality that you're going to deliver it, and you constantly seek to over-deliver on value. That's the beginning. And as a result of doing that, for example, with one of our clients, we developed a really great relationship with a man who's become a very good friend of mine, Peter. Peter worked at a company called Debenhams, and we did small transactions with Peter over a number of years, and Peter and I developed a friendship. Peter then became, in a sense, our advocate, so that when we started looking for larger scale contracts in his same company, he was already the testimonial, if you will, already the advocate for how well we did things. So he was then able to position us to the higher people in the company that were like making the bigger decisions about big maintenance contracts and that sort of stuff, so that we could win that business. And that is exactly what happened. I'll never forget showing up at a meeting at their head office in downtown London and walking in and meeting the IT director for the very first time. This is a very senior guy, IT director of a big, large, publicly traded company, maybe the most prestigious department store in all the United Kingdom. And I walk in there, and I was just a kid, and I walked in, and the environment was immediately warm. Why? Because the risk had been reversed. Because Peter had had such a good experience doing business with us that we got an incredibly warm introduction. It also meant that any competitor coming from the outside to try to compete with us that didn't have that had a long way to go. And we won the contract. But it doesn't stop there, because then what happened was we started approaching a contract with Ford Motor Company. We wanted to take over the maintenance of all their wireless network systems in their Daventry and Dagenham manufacturing plants. And they're a big, big company, huge. And they're not really going to be all that excited about a little, 25, 35 person company, are they, potentially? And so what did we do? We enticed them to come down and see our workshop and see our quality systems, right? Again, reversing the risk for them. But then Peter offered to come down, Peter from Debenhams, offered to come down to the office on the day of their tour and host them on the tour. Now remember, he works for one of the most prestigious department stores maybe in the world, and we've been doing great work for him for many years. And now we've been doing great work for the head office on their maintenance, which he's well aware of. So when the director from Ford shows up at our place, instant risk reversal. What you're looking for is instant risk reversal. You want to make sure that when your prospects are considering doing business with you, that there's a significant amount of social proof to prove to them that there isn't going to be a great deal of risk. If you're new, you might need to go more toward the guarantee side. But if you're well established, then maybe you can use quite a lot of social proof, direct references, and that sort of stuff to make things happen. But let's talk about something very important here. How are you going to get that social proof if you've got a quality problem in your company? And that's where we get into really understanding that marketing is not just these things we've been talking about in this program. Marketing is everything that you do. It's everything you do. It's the quality of the printing materials you do. It's the quality of the font you use when you email people or when you write them a letter. It's the quality of how good your invoice looks when it shows up. Your responsiveness when somebody sends an order. Do you give them a confirmation back? And so what you really want to begin to do is cultivate a situation where you are producing consistent results. Now, this may not sound like marketing to you, but I want to be really clear that if you produce consistent results for your customers, that is the best marketing in the world, particularly today where people are so vocal about the quality they're receiving. Does this make sense? All right. Another aspect of this, and this is really, really valuable stuff right here. What I would want to suggest to you is that you are constantly seeking to add more value than you're ever asking anybody to spend. You're constantly seeking to add more value than you're ever asking anybody to spend. Let me give you an example of this. This program right here that you've been watching, you're in the second last module of it. I know very well, I know anecdotally, I know from client service, I know from client surveys, I know from our own internal use that if you apply the things that I've shared with you on this program, you can very easily have a massive increase in your sales. And I don't mean a 20 to 30%. I'm talking 2, 3, 4, up to 10 times or more if you apply this stuff properly in your business. So I want you to think for a minute. What did you pay for this program relative to what you'll be able to create from it? In other words, we've given you so much more value potentially in this program than we've ever asked you to invest in it in the first place. As a consequence, the next time you're given an opportunity to do business with us, you're going to make an immediate assumption that you're going to get more value than we're asking you to spend. In fact, the very next thing that you might want to do with us, you'll probably have gotten more value out of this program than we're ever even going to ask you to spend anyway. That's a really key principle. One of the things I would suggest is that if you're in a service industry, like say coaching or business consulting or something along those lines, accounting, legal, then one of the things I would suggest to you is when you have that initial consultation with a client, there's been this old tendency to like sell the sizzle, not the steak, give them the sizzle and then sell them the steak. No, now you give them a piece of steak or something vegan if that's more appropriate. But you get my point. What you're doing is you sit down at that lunch meeting with them or at that initial interview, and what you should be seeking to do is give them more value in that exchange than you're subsequently going to ask them to spend. You're going to give them more value in that exchange so that they take a look and go, wow, I just sat with this new potential accountant and I learned more things in this one meeting than I did in the last 2 years with my old accountant. I'm in. I want to hire this accountant. So what you're attempting to do at every level is to give more value than you're ever asking people to spend. And if you do that consistently, that will simply help your brand awareness and it'll help your brand development. We have this all the time. If you take a look at WildFit, for example, the WildFit program, depending on what flavor of it you take, will cost you somewhere between $700 and $5,000, depending on which type of coaching program you take. Here's the thing, $5,000 might sound like a lot of money to you for a health coaching program, but is it really, when we now know from serving our clients that the average client saves over $500 a year in prescription medication, over-the-counter medication, and supplements. $500 a year, the average client. That means some clients that weren't using those things aren't saving anything. But it also means there are other clients that are saving $2,000, $3,000, and $4,000 or $5,000 a year on supplements, medication, and so on. So what we're doing is giving them value way beyond what we're asking them to pay. Think of it another way. If somebody's done every diet program in the world and nothing's ever worked for them, and finally now it does, which is exactly what happens on our program, how much is that worth to them? Well, I would put to you that means that our program is worth more than everything else they've ever spent, which is a lot more than what our program costs. So what you're constantly trying to do is provide more value than you're ever asking somebody to spend. And another way that you can do that is to give people a real sense of the measurable value of what you're going to be providing. And that can be done in two different ways. One, it's in terms of showing them the return on investment that they're going to get. I'll give you an example that comes out of our speaking academy. When people are at our business programs and they're contemplating how to improve their marketing in their business, we talk to them about some fundamental deployment systems of marketing. In other words, we show them inception marketing, and then we talk to them about how they can use inception marketing on the internet, how they can use it on television, how they can use it in radio, how they can use it in direct mail, how they can use it in all kinds of different mediums. One of the mediums we discuss with them is the medium of personal contact, that if they use inception marketing and personal contact, they will create the deepest, most longest impression on a prospect of any method of marketing. Much more than any other method. Face-to-face will create a longer memory than internet, than television, than radio. It just works that way. The challenge is face-to-face is very limited because you can only see so many people a day unless you move forward and get really comfortable speaking to a large group of people. So at this point, what happens is many of our clients are like, yeah, well, that may be fine and good, but I would rather die than do public speaking. I know not everybody's as afraid as that, but you'd be surprised how many people are. And so now what we start to talk about is, what is the wholesale value of being good at public speaking? What is it? I mean, what is the value in being good at public speaking? Well, I can tell you that as a professional speaker, if you're in North America, for example, and your fees are anything less than $7,000 to $10,000, people won't hire you. They won't take the risk. They won't take the risk. They don't want to be the event organizer that the speaker walks up on stage and bombs, and later they come along and go, why did you pick this person? Well, they were cheap. No. So first of all, the speaking fees as a professional speaker can be very enticing. Never mind the fact that when you're, get a little bit known at it, the next thing you know, people are flying you around and maybe business class and putting you in a nice hotel. But all that stuff, sure, it's fairly tangible, but let's go much more solidly, because that to me is the icing of public speaking. What's really powerful, what really is the core value, is that if you have a business and you can go out into the industry as an effective presenter, you can instantly turn yourself into somebody that is an absolute key person of influence in that industry, where they take a look and go, wow, I've seen that person speak at a conference and I need to know more. And I want you to consider it like this. Imagine two business consultants go to a conference and they both want to meet as many prospects as possible. One of the consultants is very good at public speaking and gets booked to speak at the conference. The other one, not so much, and is just going to walk around and do traditional networking. Who's going to meet more people? Well, clearly the one who can do the public speaking. But more than that, you tell me, which one do you think can charge more for their services? By a factor of 2 or 3 times in many cases. Oh, and incidentally, if you think that only works for a business consultant, try it on as an orthopedic surgeon, randomly. You're an orthopedic surgeon. One orthopedic surgeon can do really good, compelling stories and can get up and talk on stage, and the other one, not so much. They both go to a conference. The one orthopedic surgeon is going out and meeting the people that they can. The other one goes up on stage and makes people laugh and educates them, entertains them. And by the end of that, every single person in that audience already knows who they would want to go and see if they needed that type of surgery. And if they were at a medical conference, every other practitioner in the room knows who they want to refer business to. They're going to want to refer business to that person. These are all key components to preparing yourself for being able to make a compelling call to action. So when you're making a call to action, these psychological principles need to be in place. And then one more. Call it lubrication, if you will. You want to make it as easy as possible. In fact, you want to make it so easy to transact that it doesn't even require a thought. If you take a look at what Amazon did at an extreme here, they created one-click ordering. Once you've signed all their terms and conditions and you've got your credit card all registered, then they created one-click ordering. So you see a book and you go, I'll have that. Click. I mean, it doesn't require any effort at all. I buy way more books now than I ever used to in the bookstore days, right? The bookstore days, I had to get in a car, I had to go to the bookstore, I had to find the book, and then I had to go to the cash register, I had to wait in line, and then I had to get my wallet out, and I had to pay, and I had to sign. It was just work. Okay, I get that that's not a lot of work, but compared to one click, it's a lot of work. And so one of the things that you want to do is when you're positioning some kind of call to action, you want to make it very clear that there's risk reversal, whether you've done that through a combination or individually with guarantees, social proof, and that sort of thing. You want to make sure there's a really good value juxtaposition, that it's very clear to them that they're going to get a lot more than what they're paying for. And then you want to make the process as easy as possible. You want to make it as simple and straightforward as possible. And obviously these days online, that's really straightforward. You get yourself a good merchant account and you allow people to pay. And well, let's talk about that for a minute. Some people use PayPal as their merchant account. Well, maybe you've noticed this too, but there are a lot of people that just have some resistance to paying through PayPal. It's somehow not as clean as a normal merchant account for some people. And so you want to take a look at what is going to be the easiest way possible for people to transact with you. If you are selling in a retail environment, this is really, really important. Come on. How many times have you walked into a store? You've walked into a store, you've been interested in buying something, but you couldn't find a salesperson to talk to, or there was too big a line at the till, right? You got to make it easy as possible. I remember reading some years ago about a guy who had a kind of donut and muffin stand, and it was set up, like one of these little stands. And he was very popular, the highest quality stuff, and he always had a huge lineup of people. And he started noticing that there were people who would come along and they would see the line and they go, and they'd walk on. They'd walk on. And he's like, I'm losing business all the time. He's like, but what can I do? I'm here running my stand. What could I do? Well, what he did is he lubricated the process. He created a system where you would pay and then collect your change yourself. You would pay, and then there's a bowl with money in it, and you would just take your change out yourself. Now, you might be thinking, yeah, you're insane. You don't want to do that where I live. People would just take the money. No, as it turns out that, yes, a few people did that, but relative to the fast processing of the line and the more people that were able to get processed, he made a whole lot more money by lubricating the process. So when you're making your compelling call to action, whether it's internet, whether it's face-to-face, whether it's real world, you want to make sure you've done everything in your power to reverse the risk as best possible. You want to do everything in your power to make sure that your prospects are fully aware that they're going to get more value than you're asking them to spend. And you then want to make it as clean and as easy as possible for them to transact with you. If you can achieve those things, it will make it significantly more likely that somebody will transact. And then there's the final piece, which is not about the call to action itself. It's about what happens afterward. And you really want to do this. You want to do this very, very, very fast. Acknowledge the purchase. Now, if you're in a retail environment, that's very easy. You're going to acknowledge the purchase right then and there. But I want to say that you want to take it further. You want to acknowledge the purchase immediately, no matter how they're transacting with you. So for example, if they're transacting online, they need to have an instant confirmation that really gives them certainty about what's going on. It makes them feel good about what they've transacted. You want to give them immediate correspondence about when they can expect delivery, what's going to happen when they get delivery, that you appreciate them, that you're grateful for their order, and you want to make sure that they know how to reach you, all that kind of stuff. Now, I'll give you a case study about how I saw this handled really badly once and how it needed to be fixed. Many years ago, I was working with Anthony Robbins. Now, Anthony Robbins is clearly at the pinnacle of the kind of inspirational speaking and business speaking world. He's a fabulous guy, and he does a great job at what he does. And he was in a business partnership once, and I was doing some speaking representing that company. The company was called Business Breakthroughs International. I was doing some speaking, so touring around with Tony, teaching marketing and business. And then as a result of me teaching marketing and business, oftentimes people would say, wow, this stuff is so powerful. I wish I had somebody to help me through it. Okay, great. So I would get up on stage, and then a lot of people would come back and they'd want to have an initial consultation with somebody and potentially engage one of the consultants from BBI. No problem. We would go to an event and we would do very well. In fact, we went to one event in Las Vegas where I did the presentation, and we sold about $2.2 million worth of consulting services at that one event. But there was a problem. And the problem is that we had a really high cancellation rate. And what was happening is that because I was very compelling on stage and created a lot of energy and got people excited, they wanted to buy. And they had emotional reasons for buying, and they had logical reasons for buying, and they were in and they bought and they signed up. And it was a very big ticket product. I mean, we're talking about high level marketing and business consulting for fairly big companies. So we're talking about a spend of between $25,000 and $50,000 a month. And so then we started having some cancellations. Now, I wasn't really involved in all that. I was just the guy on stage doing my thing, and they were handling all the sales processing and so on. But when I saw all these cancellations, and I was getting paid a commission or finder's fee, I started seeing the numbers going down. What's going on there? And so one day, I found out what was wrong. And I remember sitting, having lunch with Tony Robbins, and we were talking about the sales processing and why we had such difficulty, why we were having such a high level of cancellation. Again, you know, like many of his businesses, he wasn't managing that business. It was being managed by people. So he and I were kind of elevated above what was happening on the day-to-day. When I went and investigated with and shared it with him, he was shocked. Here's what I found out. The way the system was set up was that when somebody bought the program, they would hand over their credit card number. They put that on the form, and then their order would go off and get processed. That makes sense. Their order would get processed. And then after their sale got processed, they would then get a confirmation saying, hey, congratulations, welcome to your consulting package. You'll receive an email shortly with the name of your consultant and how to get your meeting set up, and everything was fine. And it turned out those people were not canceling. Where we were having difficulties is if the credit card didn't go through straight away. If the credit card didn't go through straight away because we got one of the numbers wrong on the order form, or maybe the person had maxed out their limit, or you know how sometimes credit card companies are just overprotective, what was happening is that the credit card wouldn't go through, and they'd wait another day and try it the next day. And they had a process in place where they would try it for 3 days in a row. Sometimes that would work. But by the end of the third day, they would finally reach out to the client. And then they would call the client and say, hi, we couldn't process your credit card. We haven't been able to process your sale. Now, I want you to think about this for a minute. You've just signed up for a $35,000 package. And the first phone call you get from the company is, we weren't able to process your payment. That's why they were getting cancellations. And so Tony and I sat there and we brainstormed. And I said to Tony, listen, here's what I think needs to happen. We need to be in a position where we are changing that funnel a little bit, and we're acknowledging them as a client even before the payment's processed. As soon as they've ordered, I said, I want those people, I want their bum to vibrate with the confirmation in their phone while they're sitting in the seminar. They've gone to the back, they've signed up, and boom, 20 minutes later, bzz, they get a confirmation saying, hey, welcome to the team. We're really excited about working with you. And that way, when we later call them and say, hey, we're having trouble processing payment, they go, hey, no problem, I'm in. That one shift changed everything about the returns that we're receiving. So the compelling call to action is really important. But what's also really important is what you do after that compelling call to action. And I want you to think about what the client needs. The client wants to feel important. And so you need to acknowledge them and make them feel important. The client wants to feel a level of certainty that the investment they've made is a valuable investment. And so the quicker you can get a confirmation back to them and the quicker you can give them that certainty, the better. If you can handle those two things, you're going to create phenomenal stick levels. People are going to buy from you and they're going to be happy that they bought from you. And if you want to go a little bit further, remember too, that people really like to feel connection. They like to feel a sense of personal connection. So the more personal connection you can create in that process, even better. So if the product or service that you're selling is a high-end enough product, then you know what? Follow up with a phone call or have somebody on the team follow up with a phone call. That'll create an even higher sense of connection. And remember too, that people these days, sometimes they're a little bored and they require a little spice in life, a little bit of variety. And so if you can add a little bit of fun to the process too, you can add something in that surprises them. Maybe there's some bonus or some kind of thank you that you send them that goes above and beyond the call of duty, then you're going to create an even higher level of stick and an even higher level of client loyalty. If you can handle the after sales process really, really well, then that's just going to make the whole call to action process even more powerful. So your assignment from this module is really, really complex. You thought I was going to say simple, but no, it's actually a little more complex than what we've done so far. Here's what I want you to do. Step number one, I want you to brainstorm a number of ways that you can reverse the risk. And guarantees are one way, social proof is another way. You may have other ways. What I want you to do is just write out a paragraph or bullet points, if you like, about how you could reverse the risk for your clients. And remember, their risk is generally focused on two things: a lack of faith in themselves to actually follow through with whatever it is they bought from you, or a lack of faith in you or the product. And so what can you do to reverse the risk? That's part one of your assignment. Part two of your assignment is, how can you make sure that you are adding more value than you're ever asking them to spend, both before the sales process and in the delivery process? So how can you add more value than you maybe currently do and even improve the value proposition even further? Part three, how can you build the Part three, how can you build the value proposition even more powerfully? What I mean by that is, how can you educate the client on how much they're going to save or how big the return on investment is going to be, so that they take a look at your program and they go, wow, this should be worth X and I only have to pay Y, and create that price juxtaposition. And then number four, how could you improve or lubricate the transaction process and make it easier for people to buy from you? What are some things you could do right now to make things easier for you? I want to give you one more example of that. At all of our live events, we used to do all of our order processing on paper. We did it all on paper, but we found that because we were in all these different time zones, I might be in Helsinki one day, Johannesburg the next day, Los Angeles another day. Then when we wanted to get the orders back for processing, there'd be time zone delays. And so what did we do? We integrated a sales order processing system on iPads so that we could actually process the orders quickly and easily right there on the iPad. We made it even easier for people to transact. So that's your next step, is to take a look at how easy it is for people to transact with you now and look for ways to make it even easier for them to transact with you. And then the last part is to take a look at your after transaction process. How can you respond as quickly as possible to give them a powerful sense of certainty, make them feel valued and important as a client, get them to feel really connected with your company, and maybe give them a little bit of fun and reward. And if you can do all of those things, you're going to have a really, really powerful sales process. So that's your assignment from this module. In the next module, we're going to recap everything that we've covered in this program, and we're going to give you a little bit of feedback on how you can apply these things out in the real world. So I'll see you in the next module. Okay, whew, drink of water time. So we're going to do a little bit of Q&A. I'm going to have a quick drink of water here. We're going to do a little bit of Q&A around everything that we've covered so far. If you want to talk about calls to action, creating certainty for your clients, value propositions, if you want to talk about all that stuff, you can. If you want to talk about, ideal target markets or engagement pitches, anything we've covered up to now is fair game. Plus any breakthroughs you've had. We've seen a couple of people writing comments of, hey, I tried this overnight and I got this response and that kind of stuff. So any of that sort of feedback, super valuable at this point. All right.
Oh, that's me first. Just 1 second.
Okay, guys, the questions are coming in. I said that you guys are sending them in so fast at times that they have a hard time sorting. So we're going to get there. Is this the one?
No,
Okay.
I need to see that.
Also, by the way, remember, guys, we still have a couple of things to give away. If I remember correctly, we still have one live business freedom experience to give away. And I think we still have some Inception Marketing video training programs to give away. So if you're kind of sitting on the fence about whether or not to ask your question or share some kind of victory, maybe that'll motivate you. Make sure you do it. All right.
There you go.
Lori?
Yep.
All right, so Lori Faith. Hey, Lori, it's great to have you here. Thanks for being here. And let's see, what first inspired you to start using the Inception Marketing method? How did you first figure this out when so many businesses and coaches use aggressive product marketing? Lori, I wish I could tell you that I was so genius and so brilliant that I just woke up one day and came up with this fabulous thing. I want to tell you, it was a whole combination of things. First of all, as a kid, one of the very first things I got involved with was selling. As a kid, I was selling seashells in front of my house. I lived in Eastern Canada, and in summertime, I'd go collect seashells and I'd carve a little groove into them, and I would sell them as adding value, seashell, little groove in the side, ashtray, right? And so I started selling stuff. And then I had lemonade stands, and I was raking leaves and shoveling snow. And so I was already, as a kid, really thinking about how to improve the sales process. Like, for example, when I knocked on people's doors to try to shovel snow for them, I found that sometimes I might walk up and go, hi, I'd like to shovel your sidewalk, right? Well, that would get me some sales, but it would also lose me some. But sometimes I'd walk up and I'd knock on the door and go, hey, I want to make sure you don't slip on your sidewalk. Yeah, you see what the difference it makes? And so I was already, as a kid, split testing approaches. And I wish I could tell you I knew how I knew to do that. But it was just, I grew up in maybe some tough circumstances, and I had to fight for myself, and I figured out a few of those things. But the evolution of it continued. And what I want to inspire you, Lori, and everybody else who's watching, is to recognize that business is a continual education process. It doesn't stop. I remember this is really funny, Lori, I want to say 3 years ago, when we first created, I mentioned to you guys that we occasionally do this program where people can learn public speaking from me for free online. And guys, I think we are going to do that. There's been so many of you asking about it. So it won't happen right away, but we are going to do it, and you will get an email about it. But here's what's really funny. We sent an email out to our whole database saying, hey, free online training about public speaking. And Lori, I kid you not, people wrote back and said, I'm already a public speaker. I don't need this. Thanks very much. Really? I mean, really? Let's just get clear for a minute. If you guys think that, if you've ever seen me live, or if you think that I'm training in a way that you enjoy, I mean, if you think that at all, I want you to know something. A, I was not a natural. B, I was terrified of it. And C, I probably attended $100,000 worth of courses on communication and language and public speaking and so on. And I will never stop studying. So when these people wrote to me and said, oh, I'm already a professional speaker, I don't need your course, I thought, perhaps that's why I've never heard of you. I don't know. So what I want you to know is that all the final kind of construct of Inception Marketing was born a bit like this. I was already kind of sales-led as a kid. And then I got my first job, and it was a door-to-door selling job for a company that was actually owned by Berkshire Hathaway. Now, this is kind of funny, Berkshire Hathaway being Warren Buffett's company. Now, I never got to meet Warren, but the point is that I was working for this company, and it was owned by Berkshire Hathaway. So Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett's partner, was actually responsible for that company. Now, this is kind of interesting because many, many years later, I would meet Chet Holmes. And Chet Holmes was a phenomenal business consultant, an incredible marketing mind. And when he and I met, as soon as we met, he saw the way I did presentations and stuff. And he's like, when did you do my seminar? And I'm like, well, I never did your seminar. I said, Chet, I'm sorry, I didn't grow up in the United States, so I've never heard of you before this. I was at a Christmas party at Alex Mendosian. For those of you who know Alex, I was at a Christmas party at Alex Mendosian's house. I met Chet. I'm like, Chet, I'm sorry, I hate to admit it to you, I've never heard of you before. And he goes, no, you've read my book. And I said, why do you think that? And he goes, because the way you construct a presentation or the way you construct your marketing message, it's all based on education and value adding and data, and that's what I teach. And I was like, no. And so he was really baffled. He thought that I'd learned it from him. And well, many, many months later, maybe a year later, he and I were having dinner one night with his wife, Vicky, and we were sitting talking, and he was such a curious guy. So he'd always be asking questions. And so he started asking me about my upbringing and my first jobs. And when I told him about the company I worked for, he goes, that's it. And I go, what? He goes, the company you're working for, it was owned by Berkshire Hathaway. Charlie Munger was running it. He was working for Charlie Munger at that point. And so he was using those kind of education value-based marketing ideals in the company. I was learning them from him as a 17-year-old kid, although we'd never met. And so when we met all these years later, he was able to pick up some of the things that I was doing and recognize them as maybe originating with him. Then it got more refined. And what really helped to get refined was I got a phone call one day saying, hey, can you come and teach business and marketing at Tony Robbins' Business Mastery Programs? Because unfortunately, Chet Holmes had passed away. And Chet had always said that they should use me if ever they had a problem. And so I ended up going there and teaching it. And what I was doing was so similar to what Chet was doing that they allowed me to kind of modify it a little bit and kind of, and refine it, because how I had typically done it before was as a consultant, where I would come to your company and I would do this for you. But I didn't have this like holistic 9-step process. And so each time I did the presentation, I would refine it and refine it and refine it. In fact, one day I sat down with Tony, and it was actually after my very first presentation. And can you imagine what that was like for me? I mean, Tony was a very big inspiration for me when I was 17, 18, 19 years old. And so here I was many years later, and I'm like sitting in the, I'm doing a seminar and he's in the audience, and then he and I are having lunch talking about it. And he starts going, Eric, I just loved your presentation. It was incredible. And he did this for like 20 minutes, just going on about all the stuff he loved about the presentation. And I'm like, okay, Tony, I don't know if I can handle a lot more of that. Could you tell me one other thing? He goes, what? And I said, how can I make it better? And he went, oh, well, all right then. And he got out my journal, and he started giving me all these notes and helping me refine the message. And so over the next year, I was really able to take inception marketing and turn it into a very, very practical, teachable thing. And what was funny about this little side story is that I showed up at that Las Vegas conference to teach it there. And I had completely changed the workshop so I could teach it the way we now are teaching inception marketing. And one of the woman who was running the consulting division for Tony's company, she had a total meltdown. She had a complete meltdown. She looked at the workshop book, the workbook that we gave out, and she saw that I'd broken it into this beautiful linear, like it totally made sense. And she had a meltdown. She goes, you can't let Eric go up there on stage and teach it like that. Then everybody will know how to do it and they won't need to buy our services. Well, what she'd forgotten is one of Chet's principles and one of my principles, and that is give away as much value as possible when people want to transact with you. And I kid you not, that day I went up on stage, taught it in this beautiful, bulleted, logical format. And we did $2.2 million of sales. And she then went out and had a couple of drinks so she could get drunk enough to come up and apologize for yelling and swearing at me. I'm not kidding. And she actually said to me, you may well have saved our division. So yeah, inception marketing has been an evolution in process, and Laura, you've brought up an interesting point for everybody here, and I'll make sure that I mention it in the next module. So thank you for stimulating this thought. Is that remember that I'm teaching it as a 9-step process for you, right? But once you get really good at this, you won't necessarily run it in that order. It just is the best way to learn it. But in the future, for example, you'll do market research, and then that might make you choose a different ideal target market. Or you might pick an ideal target market and then choose your engagement pitch, but then do market research and realize you need a different engagement pitch, right? Anyway, Lori, thanks for that. That's a really great question. It was a lot of fun. Thank you. Patricia Barros, I am a parent coach, and I've signed clients mostly through word of mouth or by chance encounters, playgrounds, supermarkets. I do not have a big following nor a mailing list yet. Where do you recommend I start to post my inception campaign? Oh, well, Patricia, I would suggest probably the easiest thing for you is to start with something like Facebook, Instagram, and that kind of stuff. You probably already have a profile, and you probably already have some friends. And remember, because inception marketing doesn't really look like marketing, it ends up being shareable content. So you're a parent coach, right? So let's say, for example, here, let's say you uploaded this program, let's say you uploaded a video that was something like this. Hi, I'm Patricia, and today I just wanted to share with you something about the way kids think. Very often kids are still trying to figure out the way the universe works. And so if you don't explain to them the way things work, then sometimes they're going to start to feel a little bit unimportant. So it's really important if you give some explanation to your children about why you're leaving when you're leaving, or why they have to come with you, or why they have to stop playing their game, instead of just picking them up or telling them how it is. And if you collaborate with them, then what you're going to do is help them to build some self-esteem. And I think many of us would agree we would have liked it if our parents did that with us. Now, let's say you record some kind of cute little video like that, and you upload it to Facebook. Well, isn't it possible that some of your friends start sharing that, right? And so your Facebook following starts to grow. And then the other thing I would suggest to you, Patricia, is absolutely get yourself some kind of an email management system where you can start building a list. It's one thing to have followers on social media, but Guy Kawasaki, he said something really powerful about this. He goes, I'd rather have 2,000 people on my mailing list than 2 million followers. Something like that. I may be getting that quote wrong. But see, followers don't provide the same level of engagement as people that are actively opted into a mailing list for you. And so I would suggest that if you have some kind of a blog or a newsletter where you actually pull people in every now and again and get them to subscribe to you, I think that's going to be really valuable. And like I say, I think I would be inclined to start with social media in your case. And then also the other thing I would really consider doing in your case, especially on parent coaching, there is such a market for that out there right now. I'm aware of it because I have one child that's about to turn 20, and I have one that just turned 1. So I've kind of seen the spectrum of parenting over the last 20 years, and there's a big market for really helping people learn how to do parenting properly. And so one of the things I might consider if I were you is really looking at creating some workshops. And maybe your first workshops have 8 people at them. Maybe they're just 8 friends that are showing up out of kindness. But if you construct those workshops really well, then they're going to have 10 people, then 12 people, then 30 people, and so on. And so, I think those are 2 ways that if I were in your shoes that I would probably go after straight away. Great question, Patricia. Thanks very much. Pauline, what is the best way to overcome the objection that they can't afford it right now, even though I know it's just an excuse? Well, Pauline, that's a very 1980s style. Like, that's a problem that comes out of 1980s marketing. If you're doing features and benefit selling, then you're very often going to run into that price, can't afford it thing. Let me be very clear about can't afford it. Can't afford it really means I don't see the value. It really does. And I want to be clear, unless you're selling like a house or a car, but if you're selling something that is, say, under $10,000, the most people out there in the world that you probably would want to be selling to, if their car suddenly died and they had to do $5,000 worth of repair to it, they'd figure it out. They'd figure it out somehow. And so the issue really comes down to this. Have you built the value proposition up front? Remember, when you're marketing to somebody, your goals ultimately are to build up solid emotional reasons for them to buy and solid logical reasons for them to buy. Now, if you've only built logical reasons for them to buy, they can't afford it. Are you with me? If you've only built logical reasons to buy, they can't afford it. But if you've built the emotional reasons for them to buy, then they can afford it. And if you've also built logical, then they'll buy it and not return it. And so what I would suggest is that when you run a really powerful inceptive campaign like this, you will cut down the number of people that are telling you I can't afford it. You will cut that, you'll cut that down dramatically. Now, let's talk about if it still comes up. Well, if it still comes up, remember that in the call to action, what you're really trying to do is build a value proposition that's so incredibly high that they absolutely want to do it. We've noticed, for example, that when we run WildFit webinars, if I forget to point out that people end up saving so much money on reduced expenses. We found that a lot of people say, oh, if I get healthy with my food, I'm gonna have to spend a lot more money on food. No, actually it turns out our clients are telling us from all over the world that they are spending less money on food now than they ever were before. Because they're eating less and they're buying less of these high sugar expensive things that are triggering them to eat more food. So they're actually saving money on food, they're saving money on supplements, they're saving money on prescription medicine and over-the-counter medicine. If I forget to mention that during a webinar, we have slightly lower conversion, right? If I remember to mention that, then people are going, oh, if I'm gonna spend $1,500 or even $5,000 on improving my health, absolutely. Oh, and the other thing that I can mention, if I really wanna go for it, is, hey, 1 in 3 people are gonna die of cancer and 1 in 3 people are gonna die of heart disease. And even if your medical insurance covers a lot of that, it's not gonna cover a lot of it too. And so let's get preemptive and make sure there's a high value proposition. Now, if having done all of that, you're still getting people that say, I can't afford it, then at this point, maybe you have to realize that some clients need saving. Some clients really need saving. Like I've had clients come to me and I know they need to do our WildFit program, or other clients, or I know they need to do our Business Freedom program. I'm watching them sweat through their business. I'm watching them sacrifice time with their family. I'm watching their health degrade, and they're not willing to invest in a business coaching program to transform their life. They shouldn't be in business. That's the truth of it. They shouldn't be in business if they're not willing. You guys, investing your time being here, you guys should be in business, right? But people are not willing to do that. They really shouldn't be. And so what you have to get to maybe is a point where you're willing to be really direct with somebody, where you're willing to say the thing that needs to be said, the uncomfortable thing. You need to be willing to provide that little bit of extra pressure if you really truly believe in what it is that you're doing for them. And you can really truly see the timeline where they do transact with you and they don't have the problems they're going to have, or when you can see the consequences of they didn't transact and what that's going to cost them. And if you've got that solidly in your consciousness, then I think that creatively you're going to figure out the thing that needs to be said to move them past that point. Pauline, great question. Thanks very much. Dolly Star, question. People are usually more vocal negatively, which overrides positive reviews tremendously. People are more likely to complain than praise. How do you encourage more positive feedback without being pushy? Wow, Dolly, this is really, really interesting stuff, especially in today's world, isn't it? I'll tell you, I mean, last night, for example, I got to my room, I've been in the studio all day, I didn't have any food, and I didn't feel like going out. So I thought that I would call up, do one of these like online delivery services. So I went to this one, I think it's called Just Eat. And I went to Just Eat, and I logged on, and I went through the whole, I found a restaurant that had healthy food options. I went in and I created my whole order, made the whole thing happen. They'd already asked for my address to confirm they can deliver to me. Everything was fine. And then I put my credit card number in, and it won't process. And it won't process. And then I grab another one of my credit cards, and it won't process. Let me assure you, my credit card's processed. There's not a problem, right? But they won't process. They won't process. And yet there's no customer service system. There's no way of communicating with them. There's no way of fixing the problem. And I've already spent 20 minutes building the whole order. And I was like, this is so very frustrating. That being that frustrating was like, it's enough that the only way to communicate with them, there was no way to communicate with them except to go to their Facebook page and give them a review. That was the only way to communicate with them. If they'd simply created another way for me to communicate with them, I wouldn't have written a review. So there's your first answer, is make sure that it's easy for your clients to communicate with you their displeasure so that you can address their displeasure, so you can preempt the idea of a negative review. Does that make sense? And the second thing is, should somebody give you a negative review, speak to them. Go and speak to them. I am astounded. If I log on to TripAdvisor or Yelp or Facebook and I see a negative review and the client, the company did not respond to that negative review, I'm not doing business with them. I don't care if they have a 4.5 star rating. If they have a 4.5 star rating but they don't answer the negative reviews, I'm not doing business with them. I want to see that they've done a review. In fact, I'll tell you a funny little thing. At WildFit right now, we have a 4.9 star rating. I'm very proud of that, and I know it'll change. I know that in time, competitors will come in and do fake reviews, as we've already seen a bit of that as it is, and we may even end up with some clients that post negative reviews. I think we've had a couple of those, and once we've addressed their concerns, they've taken the review off. In fact, one of them, I remember very clearly, our very first 1-star review. I wrote to her personally. I wrote to her and I said, what happened? And she goes, well, I wrote to the help desk and they didn't really respond to me. And I go, well, what about the program? How did you feel about the program? And she goes, oh, it was great. I mean, I didn't lose quite as much weight as I really wanted to, but I lost this weight and I'll definitely never eat the same way again. And so this is a woman who was fundamentally happy with the program, but, was unhappy with the help desk and gave us 1-star rating. So what did we do? We took care of her, and I said, listen, if we do this, this, and this, I'd really appreciate it if you would take your review down. She didn't take the review down. She left the review up, but she upgraded it to 5 stars, right? So when you get a bad review, you get on there and you write to them. Now, what's also going to happen occasionally is you're going to write to them and they're not going to respond. They're not going to care. And you know what? Your response is still really powerful. Your response is still really powerful, because if somebody reads the negative review, they're going to read your response, and then they're going to know a little bit more about what really happened. For example, we've got this one woman. She's given us a 1-star review on our WildFit page. She runs some yoga company. And she's never done our program. I actually personally checked. I checked through the database. I checked with our reselling partner. She's never, ever, ever, ever done our program. And yet she gave us a 1-star review. And she says, this program doesn't work, blah, blah. I'm not kidding you. And so I decided to check out who she is. Well, she's this like yoga teacher, which by the way, she can't really be that good a yoga teacher because yoga talks about personal integrity and stuff. So I'm not going to go learn yoga from her. But in the meantime, what else does she do? She has a weight loss program. So what did I do? I wrote a response and I said, hey, it appears you've never done our program before. I can't imagine why you would want to write us a 1-star review, unless of course it was to tear our program down to sell your program. And so in order to help you, here's a link I will post personally to your weight loss program right here on the reviews. And so our clients see that, they see a sense of humor with it, they think it's funny, and they're definitely not clicking on her thing and going to her weight loss program. And so in the end, her 1-star review ends up being really good for us. And by the way, I'm kind of grateful for it because before she came along, we had a 5-star review, and I don't think people believe 5-star reviews. They don't. If a company has a 5-star review, you look and go, I don't know about that. But somehow a 4.9-star review is a little more believable. So I'm grateful for her review. So I hope that that helps a little, Dolly. The key things are make sure that people have the opportunity to communicate with you before they write a negative review. And remember that if they do write a negative review, respond to them, take care of them, do what you can. Even if that doesn't change your review, at least the public will see that you care and that you try to take care of their concerns. And one more thing, specifically to your question, how do we encourage more positive feedback without being pushy? That's really simple. Don't be pushy. But when somebody writes you, I do this all the time. People write fabulous things about WildFit all over the internet. And then sometimes what I'll do is I'll write a personal note. I'll say, I really appreciate you doing that. If you wouldn't mind, I'd love it if you would just click here and write it as a review on our site. And many times they go and do that. And so when somebody's already ranting, when they're already out there giving you positive feedback, then hey, ask them to give you a review. One more thing is this, and it's just, you're gonna hear a continuing theme here. Add more value. Always add more value. Keep adding more value. If you add more value, then what you're going to do is boost something that's called your Net Promoter Score. You're going to boost your Net Promoter Score up. And the way the Net Promoter Score works is if you have a score of, say, 0 to 50, it means that people are saying good things about you, but they need to be prompted to say it. If you have a promoter score of 50 plus, then it means that people are saying positive things about you and they don't need to be prompted. So I believe, for example, WildFit has a Net Promoter Score of something like 64, which is, and an iPhone is only 61. Just to put it in perspective for you, which means that most of our clients are so enthusiastic that they're out there telling the world about it. And so if you add more value, you're going to naturally encourage more positive reviews. Dolly, thanks very much. I think there's a really valuable question. In fact, Dolly is going to get a copy of the Inception Marketing Video Training Program. She's our next giveaway. Dolly, thanks so much for that question. Okay, Ashil. Should risk reversal offer be time limited? That's a great question, Ashil. So I've experimented with this both with my own stuff and with clients when I've been doing consulting work for them. And what I want to put to you is that if they are time limited, what that does is puts the client under some pressure to make a decision, right? So imagine for a minute you're selling them a $500 product in January and you tell them it has a 30-day money-back guarantee. Then what you've done at that point is opened up an app in their mind that says, I need to make a decision. I need to make a decision. I need to make a decision. And as they get closer to that 30-day mark, I think you actually, with a time limit like that, might trigger more of a return situation. Whereas if you said, this is an unlimited lifetime guarantee, they would never feel forced to make a decision. So as long as the product was really high quality, they may never ever return anything. Sure, it opens you up to some level of risk, but I'm using two extremes. I worked for a company once where we offered an unlimited, what they called an unlimited lifetime refurbishment guarantee, where for the rest of your life, if you ever wanted to have the product refurbished, you paid a fixed fee and you could do it forever. People loved the idea of that. But the truth is, most of them never ever took us up on it. I mean, that's what happened. Whereas if we told them that you have a 5-year time limit, in fact, the company did switch at one point and put it a 25-year limit. And you know what started happening? When people were out at that level, they're like, I'm getting it in there. I'm going to get the work done. So I think time limits do, there are times where they're appropriate, but I think also they can actually trigger returns sometimes. One place that we use time limited is at our live events. So when we offer our mind-blown guarantee, well, you have to make that decision while you're at the event. You can't write to us a year later and go, well, I think that I hope that makes sense. Great question, Ashil, thank you. Amy Turner, for a service business, because we are giving our one-on-one time with clients, a full refund would not be good self-care. What would you recommend for a guarantee? Well, Amy, it's not really a good thing for me to offer that. I mean, okay, you might be one-on-one, but I might be doing one, like at our speaking academy, we limit the number of people there. That's why it sells out so easily. It's limited because I have to give a lot of personal attention to somebody. So if I have to give somebody a refund, it wasn't just one more seat in the room. It's a lost transaction, just like it is for you. So what I would suggest to you is that here's the math, Amy. If you're adding a lot of value in that one-on-one session, and then you were to start offering a guarantee, how much extra business would the guarantee win you versus how many refunds you might have to issue? Who knows? Think of it this way. If you won 5 extra consulting jobs and had 1 refund, would that still not be a good idea? So I think you need to look at your industry and determine whether the risk-reward ratio still justifies the guarantee. So remember that the guarantee will lubricate the transaction process and make people more likely to transact with you. So therefore you'll have more business, okay? You might end up with more returns, but the question is, it's just like the guy with the donut muffin thing, right? He's like, people, they come up to the till and it's $2.37. They hand over $5 and then they take their own change out of the bowl. Surely some people are going to rip him off, but it allowed him to have so much more transaction flow that even if he did lose a little bit of money over there, he actually improved the business. Actually, and if I remember his story correctly, it turned out that a lot of people actually increased their tip levels dramatically. They just didn't bother taking their change. So I think that what we have to do is believe in the good faith. We have to increase our faith in people sometimes. And as long as you're providing a high level of value in those consultations, I think you need to make the assumption that most people wouldn't take you up on that guarantee, and therefore measure the real return, the real risk return ratio. So I hope that helps, Amy. By the way, another thing that you can do, Amy, is if you're doing say, I don't know how you sell this, but imagine you're doing one-on-one sessions with people, say on a 3-month contract or something. What you could do at that point is you could say, all right, well, at the halfway point through your program with us, there's a guarantee. If you feel halfway we haven't made progress, that you can just cancel the contract at that point. You might do something like that, where you haven't lost the money that you've invested so far, but you're giving them a guarantee that they're not tied into the contract anymore. There's a break point or something. So there's a number of different ways to reverse the risk there. But remember, the biggest way ever to reverse the risk is to just add so much value that they wouldn't want it. They wouldn't want a refund. All right, we'll do one more and then we'll move into the recap. This is Rob Boutet. Should you focus on building you as a brand instead of marketing a specific product or service? And if so, should you create all collateral website material featuring you? Oh, Bob, that's a big question. And it's a tough one. The answer to that is yes. And what I mean is that there are circumstances where one way is better and where other ways are better. Let's take a look at, you know that in England, a lot of the names are based on like the grandfather's career, so Cookson, his, great grandfather might've been a cook or something like that. There's a lot of that in the English culture. Have you ever considered that relative to Richard Branson? Son of a brander. Guy knows a thing or two about branding and maybe it's in his DNA, right? Now let's look at what he did. What he did is he created a corporate brand, Virgin, but he also created the Richard Branson brand. Richard, right? He's got a separate brand, separate website for Richard Branson. It links to Virgin. They're inextricably, they're tied together, but they really are separate brands. And so what I would suggest to you is that in the building of a really solid business freedom type business, when you brand it around you, you do create a few hurdles that you'll have to jump over. In other words, how would you extricate yourself from your business? Let's take a look at the seminar business, for example. 2 great examples would be Tony Robbins and Harv Eker. Right? They're both considered, you could consider them both being at the very top of that game. Tony, I would say, would maybe be #1 in the kind of celebrity and mass audience factor. And Harv, maybe #1 in a different way. And that is that he built a business that he could eventually sell and extricate himself from, right? So let's take a look at the differences. In Tony's case, Tony's seminars are all about Tony. Tony's there. And what they've done even with his big UPW program, which is a phenomenally interesting program to go and watch, if you're at that program, you'll now notice that on many of the days, Tony isn't even there anymore. He used to teach all 4 days. Now I think he teaches like a day and a half. And that creates a lot of negative client feedback because they aren't used to that, right? So now Tony can't really extricate himself from the things that he's doing. Now he's done it with some programs, like they have a program called Life Mastery where they just recorded it all on video. And so he doesn't have to teach it all the time. And they managed to do that. But across the whole business, it's so built around Tony that it has to be toning. Even something like Life Mastery, well, those videos were recorded however many years ago, so they're going to get dated after a period of time, right? And so now he's going to have to go to the studio and record the next batch. Whereas what Harv Eker did is he created very systemized and proceduralized seminars that are entirely scripted so that he was able to train really great people and get them to teach it. So he's got phenomenal trainers like Mac Atram and Marcus de Maria that travel around the world and teach his Millionaire Mind Intensives so that he doesn't have to be there. And that made it possible for him to actually sell that business. So in other words, what they did there is they branded the business, right? They branded the business at, Peaks, and then they branded the seminars, and then they slowly extricated him from the brand. He still had the Harv Eker brand. We're going through something similar around our business. I was really clear when I got, I've only really been full-time in the kind of seminar consulting persona world like this for about 5 or 6 years. And I was really clear at the beginning. I had 2 big missions that I wanted to work on. One was about emancipation of entrepreneurship. In other words, teaching business owners how to really build companies that didn't take over their lives and allowed them to live with a huge amount of financial and personal freedom. And WildFit, where I want to facilitate a massive health transformation for 1 billion people around the world. You'll notice that those are separate brands. There's Business Freedom and there's WildFit. And then separately, there's me. And I'm not necessarily tied to those brands. And here's where I really knew we were starting to work on the right track. I was sitting in the Wild Food Cafe, not to be confused with WildFit. I was sitting in the Wild Food Cafe in London, a cafe started by a friend of mine, Joel, and we were sitting there having lunch, and I was actually with Joel. And then Joel introduced me to a friend of his, a guy named David Thunder. And David is a phenomenal chiropractor and does all kinds of, he works on Tony Robbins, and he's a very, very high level guy. And we're sitting there and we're having a conversation. And then out of the blue, we're talking about food because we're in the Wild Food Cafe and we're talking about food. And suddenly David goes, "Hey, Eric, have you heard about this company, WildFit?" "Oh, isn't that?" And I was like, well, I may know a thing or two about that company, right? So in other words, the brand is growing separately from identity. And so, Rob, what I would suggest to you is that I think there's a lot of mileage in building the brand separately and then potentially building the entrepreneur or the persona as a separate brand. Again, without knowing a little bit more about your specific circumstance, I can't give you a direct prescription, but I hope that gives you some framework or some way of considering it. Cool? All right. Thanks very much, Rob. So we're going to move into the recap.
Is that where you're going?
Yeah. And how are we now? How long have we been running?
Yeah, an hour and 15 minutes.
Okay, that's perfect.
That's perfect.
That's exactly perfect. We're right on track, guys. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to do a recap of, excellent. We're going to do a recap of the entire 9 steps, right? The entire 9 steps. By the way, you know what? We're going to take a little break. We're going to take a very little break because I'm going to recap the full 9 steps. I'm talking 2 or 3 minutes, but here's what I want you to do with the break. There's a couple of thoughts I have for you. One is maybe you need a little bio break, and I want to make sure you aren't distracted and you can really go through these 9 steps. The other thing is this. Are you right now thinking there are other people in your company or friends or people around you in your life that would have benefited from doing this with us? So here's what I'll do. I'm going to give you like a 3-minute break. And if somebody from our team, can you publish the registration link in the Facebook group and put it in the chat as well? And what I'm going to say to you is we're going to recap the entire Inception marketing piece right now. So somebody can come in fresh and they can completely get what it is that we're going through. And because they're registering through the link, they'll also still have a good 24 hours to actually watch the full recording if they want to. So I'm going to give you about 3 minutes to go ahead and share the link out there if you want to do that. Don't feel obliged. A number of you have asked, like, can I share this with my friends? So yes, you can. I'll give you about 3 minutes, and then we're going to jump in and recap the whole 9 modules. All right, so 3 minutes begins now. All right, back on, sound on, cameras on, lights on. Let's do it. All right, guys, was it a good break? Excellent. So as I said, we're going to jump right in now and record the final module, which is going to run through all 9 steps. When we're finished recording the final module, what we're going to do from that is we're going to take another break and a short one, 3-4 minutes, just buy a break, get some water and what have you. And then what we're going to do is we're going to talk about some core principles of business freedom. Because again, as I've said, if you apply all this stuff in your business, some of you, this could actually be dangerous for some of you. I don't know if you've seen the stories, but there are companies out there that have gone out and done deals with like Groupon, and they've slammed themselves so much with business that they've ended up going out of business, right? And in fact, I was talking to a guy who had done some toy marketing deals with Disney. And they said, what's really interesting is these companies go and do a toy marketing deal with Disney with a movie franchise thing, and then they zoom up to like $100 million. And then they basically go out of business because they just weren't ready for that kind of growth. And so, now, by the way, as I understand it, Disney does a lot more handholding to help them support through that growth. So what I want to do is do a little bit of that handholding with you. So after the break, we're going to talk about some key principles of business freedom so that when you're applying this stuff in your marketing world and you do suddenly have a burst of sales, look, what I don't want to do is suddenly help you have this burst of sales and then put you on a treadmill where the bigger you're getting, the busier you're getting. Right? I want to help you get to a place where the bigger you're getting, the more freedom you have. So after the break, we'll talk a little bit about some core principles of business freedom and how we might be able to support you in that. And then we're going to go to Q&A, and we've got a few people that will be coming on live to do the coaching. So it's going to be value packed. All right, let's jump into the recording mode here. Are we good with the whiteboard positioning? Because I'm going to use the whiteboard for the recap.
Looks good.
Okay. Is the whiteboard in a good location for the primary recording, do you think?
Was that?
Yes.
Since I'm going to be writing on it, because you're shooting 4K, so you'll be able to cut.
Yeah, we can bring it in.
Just pull it forward a little bit.
It doesn't feel like it's in the right place because I have to walk so far back to get to it.
Yeah.
For this section, I think.
Better for this one.
Yeah, I think for this section, this is better.
Can you move just a tiny bit this way?
Me? I feel like I'm off center of the camera now. Oh, I am off center. I got you. What if I do that?
Yeah.
How's that?
Good stuff.
Good? All right. We can always crop in stuff. It's 4K.
Maybe let's move it a little bit more this way.
Okay. All right. All right. Home stretch. Can we do this in a one-take wonder?
Yeah, you have 500 people watching. You're good.
Why not? Why not? All right. All right. So let's jump in. This is module 9, final module. All right. Welcome back. I'm Eric Edmeades, and this is Inception Marketing Video Training, Module 9, the wrap-up. This is a full review of everything that we've done so far. Before we go into the review, I want to remind you why we do this. Why do we get strategic about our marketing? Remember that in the old world of selling and marketing, the best metaphor we can come up with is really a dartboard, where we see the prospect and we throw darts and try to close the sale. What we're now going to do is do something a lot more strategic, like a game of chess. Remember our metaphor around dating? Whatever sale you're trying to make, whichever side of the dating equation you're on, if you're trying to make the immediate intimacy sale, or you're trying to make the long-term marriage sale, if you try to make that sale before you've ordered dinner, it's not going to be a very successful date, no matter what you're trying to sell. So what we're really doing with a powerful inceptive strategy is we are laying the groundwork. We are preparing the environment to make it easier to transact our business. And again, remember, this works whether you are trying to get people to vote for you in an election, whether you're trying to get people to invest in your company, whether you're trying to get people to buy a product or service from you, whether you're trying to get employees to come and work for you. These steps work no matter what. I also want to remind you that these steps are taught in this order for easy learning, but you might not end up deploying them in this order. All right, so let's go through the steps. Do you remember what they were? Right? When we are doing inception marketing, we are creating inception. We are working to create the beginning. We're working to create the moment of inception where somebody says, oh, I already am curious about that. In fact, I've always wanted to do that. That's that kind of energy that we're kind of trying to create. So the first thing that we do, because look, take a breath and relax. When you're going to work on an inception marketing campaign, close the door, turn your phone on to silent mode, put it in airplane mode, shut off your email. This is no longer that tactical type of selling where it's just like quickly trying to get the sale, quickly putting up a landing page, quickly designing a brochure. This is where you give some serious thought to the process. And in any endeavor, in any big project you want to take on, you need an objective, right? And so the first thing for us to get clear about is what are our massive strategic or long-term objectives? And what is that? In our case, it's developing our overall target market. Our overall target market. Who is everyone that we would like to sell to with a series of campaigns in the future? And remember that when we do the overall target market, we do not allow limiters of psychology. In other words, we're not saying everybody who is interested in, people who are curious about, people who need. No, it's just the people, because we're going to use inception, which means that we don't have to go after that small 10% of people that are already interested. We're going to go after the big blue ocean of opportunity of the people who aren't even interested yet. And remember, there are advantages in that. Because when you can take people who were never interested in the first place and you can convert them, you become the point of conversion and you create a very significant tendency toward loyalty at that point. So we're going to figure out who our overall target market is. Then, once we figured out our overall target market, we're going to recognize something, and that is we cannot create one marketing campaign that's going to appeal to all of them. Can't be done. Remember the assignment? Go ahead. You choose the assignment. I would like you to come up with a marketing campaign that appeals to every single people on planet Earth. Did I say every single people? I would like you to create a marketing campaign that appeals to every single person on planet Earth. Every one of them. All ages, all sexes, all religions, every country. I don't care. I want you to create one marketing campaign that appeals to everyone. Or your other assignment is, I want you to create a marketing campaign for my friend Jim Smith, who's a mid-level manager at a manufacturing firm with 3 kids, and he likes to give money to charities that involve education and conservation. He enjoys cross-country skiing and bowling. Which marketing assignment would you like? The more targeted it is, the easier it is to assure results with the marketing campaign. And so our next step is to figure out who our ideal target markets are, or our subsections of the overall target market. This is absolutely key to effective marketing, because when you know who your ideal target market is, you can start to get a sense in your head of who it is that you're speaking to. In a very real sense, if you play this game really well, once you've identified a few ideal target markets, you can actually name them. You can name them. You've got an ideal target market. You can name them. And if you really want to have some fun with this, you go over to Fiverr and you send a description of what those people are like. You know, for example, if we use the example of the wedding photography, and he said, oh, my ideal target market, one of my ideal target markets is the bride, then he would go, all right, let's name her, and let's write to Fiverr, and let's get Fiverr to design us a caricature of what she looks like. And that way, every time we write a blog post for her, every time we write her an email, we have an image in our head of who she is. When you've created great ideal target markets, you can turn them into these people that you're writing to. And then your message will have a lot more punch and a lot more power. In order to do that effectively, however, what's going to become really important is that you know who they are. And so we go to the next step, and that is to figure out their drivers. What's going on for them? What are they worried about? What are they thinking about? What are their goals? What are their challenges? You're going to apply a little bit of empathy here into delving into who they really are. By getting a real sense of who they are, you're going to be in a much better position to be able to be in a much better position to be able to create engagement, which of course is our next step. So next step, once we've identified some of their drivers, sorry guys, skip a step. Okay, so step 3 was drivers. So step 3 is to figure out their drivers, to figure out what their goals and what their challenges are. What are they thinking about? When they go to Google, what are they typing in? The more you know about their psychology, the more easy it's going to be for you to engage them. And another thing that's going to make it easier for you to engage them is to do the next step, which is to create market research, to go out and conduct market research. Market research. Now, remember, we're not talking about the old style market research where you're going out there to evaluate whether or not your product has a space in the market. We're not talking about that. We're talking about actual generalized research about the market. What's going on out there? What's happening for these people? What are they thinking about? What are the circumstances around them? Are there legislative changes coming? Are there changes to the tax code? Are there technological changes coming? Are there social impact changes coming? Have there been some studies out there that have pulled out these nice little nuggets of information that would make them go, you're going to look for market research because that market research is going to help you find these like kind of smoking guns or little nuggets that you can use either for engagement or in your inceptive story. So we're going to conduct market research. We also discussed that we're not going to use Google to do our market research unless we're being extremely discerning. What we can do if we're on the lower end of the budget is we can go engage somebody like Fancy Hands to go out and do the engagement for us or do the research for us. We can engage a PA to do it, or we can go and hire a researcher, or when we have a little bit more of a budget, we can actually go out and engage a really good market research company to go do this. But I want you to remember something. The average market research company does not know how to do this type of marketing research. What they want to do is the old style market research. What you want is a company that can really research the market at depth in order for you to create an incentive campaign. One of the companies that we recommend for that is a company called Empire Research. They do a great job of this. And so what I want to be clear about is that when you want to get good market research done, you don't just simply go out and ask for market research, because then you're going to end up with a lot of useless stuff. If you go out there and get proper market research that's designed for this type of campaign, it will absolutely change your life from a marketing perspective. Once you've done your market research, we move to the next step, and that is to create engagement. We create engagement. What does that mean? It means that by thinking about who they are, by thinking about what they're thinking about, we are then going to make them some kind of a commitment or a promise or a giveaway that meets them where they live, that is about them. Look, if we all got together and had a live event, say you come to one of my live events one day, and I really hope that you will. If you come to one of my live events, the odds are we'll take some kind of a group picture. When we take the group picture, and there are a whole lot of other pictures from the event, you might log on to Facebook and look at those pictures. But let's be honest, this is how that's going to go. You're going to be looking at the pictures, and you're going to go, I'm not in that one, I'm not in that one, I'm in that one. Now, I'm not making fun of you. I do that. We all do that, right? Why is that important? Because that's how marketing is today. People see marketing and they go, I'm not in that one, I'm not in that one, I'm not in that one. And they only respond to marketing when they feel like it's meeting them where they live, where it's actually resonating with what's going on for them in their lives right now. And so by doing this process and getting to a place where we're giving them an engagement pitch that is about them and not about us, it changes everything. Look, an elevator pitch, throw it away. It's done. An elevator pitch, unless you refine it and turn it into an engagement pitch, is useless. Almost every elevator pitch I've ever heard has been all about the person giving the elevator pitch. If you can switch your elevator pitch so it's all about the person receiving it, now you've got an engagement pitch. Now, before I move to the next step, I want to just give you a funny little anecdotal example of how this might work. I want you to imagine for a minute that I am a 14-year-old boy and I would very much like to go to Disneyland. Yes, I would like to go to Disneyland. Now, if I use the 1980s sort of hardcore selling model, how am I going to sell my parents? Well, they're my ideal target market. I'm going to go to my parents and I go, Mom, Dad, I really want to go to Disney. My friends are going to Disney. Disney's so much fun. It'd be really great. Please, 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 can we go to Disney, please? And if I get a no, what's going to be next? All my friends are going. All my friends' parents are sending them to Disneyland. Oh yeah, kids are not against using guilt, are they? Right? And then kids will even go to bribery. I'll work harder in school. They'll do everything they can. They'll use the old pressure model of selling. But what if they were to get incentive? How might that look? Well, who's your ideal target market? I'm a 14-year-old kid. My parents are the ideal target market. What are their drivers? What are they worried about? What are they concerned about? Well, I'm 14 years old. They probably want to I'm 14 years old. They're probably considering like, they want to make sure I don't start smoking. Maybe they don't want me to use drugs or drinking. They want to make sure I don't get anybody pregnant. Or if I was a female that I don't get pregnant, they want to make sure I get good grades in school. They want to make sure I don't get brought home by the police. I mean, different parents have different concerns, right? But parents have a bunch of concerns like this. Okay, so once I know what their concerns are, I can do engagement, can't I? Now I want you to imagine the difference. I walk into the kitchen, my parents are at the kitchen table, and I say, hey, Mom, Dad, I really want to go to Disneyland one day. Do they even look up from their iPads? No, they don't. I mean, I won't get engagement of any kind. Maybe one day, or no. But what happens if I walk into the kitchen and I go, hey, Mom, Dad, I've been paying a lot of attention to university entrance requirements lately. Are they listening? Do you think? Are they paying attention? I think so. And I'm like, well, I've noticed that grades are a lot more important than I ever thought they were. And so I just want you to know, I'm going to be giving a lot more thought to that. But the other thing that I noticed is that universities, they value stuff beyond grades. They don't want a bunch of robotic grade makers. They want creatives. They want people that are undertaking cool projects and stuff. Creativity apparently is really valued in the university environment. And so what I've been doing is I've been going out and studying creativity. So first thing I did is I've got a list of the people that are, kind of considered the most creative people of our times, and some of those people include like Thomas Edison and Nikola Tesla and like Steven Spielberg and Walt Disney and Elon Musk. I mean, there's some really creative people out there. So I'm going to be doing kind of like little biographical reports on all these people to really delve into what creativity means. And so right now I'm working on Walt Disney. And so if you've got any blogs or articles or books or references or anything, any information at all about Walt, I'd really appreciate it if you hand it over and help me out with this little project. Thanks very much. And then I leave the room. Tell me, what conversation do my parents start having? I'm going to guess that it's going to go like this. First of all, they're going to go, who was that? And what have they done with our son? Right? Because there's a bit of a change of engagement. It's no longer the old style of selling. Now, once we get past that, then they're going to go, well, if he's excited about university right now, we got to get on board. What can we do? Well, this whole creativity thing, it's a big deal. Do you have any books about Disney? Let's go. We can Google and get some information. I know. We could take him to the Disney Family Museum in Northern California, and we can even take him to Disneyland. And it's going to be their own idea. That's inception. So again, remember, overall target market, ideal target market, what's driving them? We do some market research, then we create engagement. And then once we've created engagement, we're moving on to a very important step of creating inception. So in the case of our 14-year-old kid, the engagement pitch was, let's talk about university. And then the inception story was, hey, creativity, I'm working on Walt Disney right now, and it incepts the idea. Now I'm using a silly little example in a family, but let's be really clear. As we've been through this whole program, these steps work no matter what type of influence you're trying to create. The point is that if you don't know who you're trying to influence, you can't influence them. If you don't get specific about who you're going to influence, you can't influence them. If you don't know who they are, you can't influence them. If you don't understand their environment, you can't influence them. And if you do not get engagement, you will never earn the right to influence them. And once you've got their engagement, now, by giving them engaging, entertaining, and valuable content that makes them see the world differently, that makes them have an adjustment or a paradigm shift, then you're going to create inception. And that inception is going to change the way they think. And changing the way they think is going to lead them to a transaction. Then we're going to move on. Once we've, okay, hang on one second. Pause for a second, guys. I want to make sure we're on track here. I feel like I've got the numbering out of order somehow. 1, 2, 3, 4, market research, 5, engagement, 6, inception. No, I'm on track. Okay, that's the live environment, guys. My dream of a one take, not quite happening, but we can edit that out. All right. Okay, so, all right. So once we've delivered our inceptive story, and we've kind of remember also that an inceptive story is not always about moving them to a buying transaction. It's about moving them toward curiosity. It's about getting them asking buying questions sometimes. Yes, many times it'll move them straight to the transaction. But even if it moves a percentage of people straight to transaction, it will actually move a lot of people over to interested and curious. Remember how much easier it is as a salesperson if somebody starts asking you buying questions. It kind of gives you a green light, right? It says, hey, I'm interested. I want to know more. And so having created that environment, then our next step, so having created that environment, our next step is to create a compelling call to action. We're going to create a compelling call to action, and that is by reversing the risk, by building more value, and by lubricating the process to make it as easy as possible for them to transact with us. When we do that, when we create that compelling call to action, you know what, guys? How much of a drag is that? You guys watched me do this. We'll all laugh one day about the day that I messed this whole thing up and I was writing on paper, because call to action is not the next step.
Oh.
The next step was teach them how to buy. I actually have no idea how to fix that without rewriting, and it's not going to look the same.
white paper over it.
No, that would be really obvious.
That's gonna look awful.
Okay, guys, does anybody have a suggestion? I need to replace item number 7. I got it wrong. Anybody have any ideas? How?
Rip it. Oh, good one. Rip it at that level.
Not rip, cut. Who wrote that?
I don't know who wrote it first.
Okay, we're gonna reward somebody for that.
You're not gonna get you some.
Hang tight, guys. This is a live environment. What a brilliant idea that is. Here we all are in the studio. You'd think one of us would have thought of that. No, all the more reason to crowdsource your live studio audience, right?
Isabel, what's the last name?
The issue might be that I don't know where their scissors are right now, so we're gonna have to.
Hang on, just make sure we don't. Fine. Okay. That was brilliant. I'm actually gonna clean a cut with that one with scissors.
Yeah, straighter.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not actually.
Done. There you go. Can you see, Jose, in it all? Can you see the cut?
The left part behind the,
This one?
yeah, that one.
Everyone says it looks perfect.
Yeah, they're on a webcam. They're on a webcam and he's shooting 4K.
Should we just put that little green mark right there?
Do you want the knife?
I'll take the knife. How's that, Jose?
Possible can see better, I think it's fine.
Okay.
All right. All
If anyone
right.
notices that, we'll give them
Yeah.
something in the.
By the way, Isabel, thank you very much for your genius idea. I know a lot of people gave the idea, but I think Isabel was quickest off the mark. And so, Isabel, we're going to give you a free copy of the Inception Marketing Training Program when it's all edited and done. Thank you very much, Isabel. That was really sweet. All right. So, with that, I needed a blue, and we're moving to setting blind criteria. Oh, that's really funny. This is a story we'll be telling one day.
Remember when we did that class?
All right. Okay, and having delivered our inceptive story, we remember something, and that is that the inceptive story is not always designed simply to move somebody to transaction, it's to move them to curiosity. So yeah, some people will be moved to transaction, but some will simply be moved to interest. And so that's when it becomes really important to go to the next step, and that is to teach them how to buy, because some of them may not transact right now, right? Some of them may not transact right now. And so what we want to do is leave them with a really powerful list of criteria that leads them to the logical conclusion that they should buy from you and that they shouldn't buy from somebody else. And so we go to step 7. And step 7 is teach them how to buy. You're going to teach them how to buy. And how are you going to do that? Remember, you're going to teach them how to buy by giving them a list of empirical and measurable and non-fluffy things. So you're not going to say things like, well, make sure you do business with a company that really cares, or make sure you do the business that cares about quality. No, it's going to be things like, make sure you're doing business with a company where they have these certifications, or they've been in business this long, or they have these empirical things that you can actually measure. They have these testimonials that you can actually see, and that their testimonials are current, or whatever the case may be. You're going to use tangible exercises here that are really going to give somebody where they can read through it like a checklist and go, yes, they have that, yes, they have that, yes, they have that. And remember, one mental model you can use to make this list easier to generate is think of it in terms of, what if you had a really good friend or a relative that wants to buy what you sell, but for some reason is prohibited from buying it from you? So what advice would you give them to make sure they bought from the next best option? Remember something else about this step, about teaching them how to buy, is that you may well come up with criteria that you wish you had. Right? Remember how I did my company? One day I realized, wow, I really wish I could write that I had ISO 9000 on here, because if I was writing up the specification, ISO 9000 quality system would absolutely be part of it. And so once I realized that, I went out and got the ISO 9000 qualification. So teach them how to buy, and also recognize this is a great brainstorming exercise for you improving your business over time. So once we've done that, now our job is to make it as easy as possible for somebody to want to transact with us. And so what we're going to do is we are going to create a compelling call to action. We're going to create a compelling call to action. And so how do we do that? Well, we remember that by looking at what stops somebody from taking action, we're going to do everything we can to remove those obstacles. So we're going to risk reverse wherever we can. However we do that, we can reverse risk through things like warranties and guarantees and refund policies. And we can also reverse the risk by value proposition, which is the next thing. By building in so much value that there is no risk. They look at it and go, wow, the return on investment on this is so significant, I'm in. And another aspect of that is by making sure that every transaction you've ever done with them is of extremely high value. I can tell you that in our business, we have a very, very high follow-through. In our business, we have a very high follow-through footprint. What I mean is that if somebody transacts with us once, they're extremely likely to transact with us through most of our offerings. This is kind of interesting because for many years, our business freedom seminars have been feeding traffic to WildFit. Because if people did all our business freedom seminars, they're like, wow, I learned this so well, I must be able to learn a lot about health and transform my health just like I transform my business. But we've always had this theory that one day WildFit would get big enough that it could feed business back to business freedom. And I can tell you that absolutely is the case now. A huge number of our clients that end up at our speaking academy, that end up at our business trainings, that end up at our marketing trainings actually started at WildFit and are going in the other direction. Why? Because we provide so much value at the first level that they have faith in the second level. So again, that's a big part in making sure that you've got a compelling call to action. And then also remember that you want to create actual value juxtaposition or price juxtaposition where they can see that the cost of transacting with you is a lot less than the cost of transacting with somebody else or not transacting with you at all. You want to make sure that they see the cost of not doing business with you compared to the cost of doing business with you and go, well, it's a no-brainer. It makes sense that I do this. And then you need to lubricate the offer. You need to make it as easy as possible for them to transact. You make it as easy as possible for them to purchase, for them to engage. And then lastly, remember this important part that comes after the call to action. And that is make sure they feel good about what they've done immediately. However you do it, as quickly as possible, you acknowledge them, you make them feel important as a client, you make them feel connected with your company, you give them a sense of certainty that they've made the right decision, that you're going to take good care of them. And where possible, you give them a little bit of fun and give them a sense of variety so they feel like, yeah, I'm really part of this. And if you do that properly, then not only will you have a faster throughput of people wanting to transact with you, but you're also going to create a much higher likelihood of raving fans that are telling their people about you. And so that you're going to get a lot of free marketing. A really good inceptive campaign creates free marketing at every level. When you've got a really good inceptive campaign, your inception story, your story can be so valuable that people are just out there sharing it with the world. And if your call to action process is so good that people feel so good about their transaction, even before they've received the product, they're going to go tell people, I bought this thing and I'm so excited about it. And that's the beginning of word of mouth referrals, which is the cheapest and most powerful form of marketing there is. That is inception marketing in the 9 steps. Remember, your overall target market, everybody you'd like to reach, your ideal target markets within that, many subsections of your overall target market. What drives them? What are they thinking about? What are their goals? What are their challenges? Do market research, really understand their environment, what's happening around them. Then figure out how to engage them. How do you engage them? Speak to them about what they want to talk about. Then deliver an inceptive story. The engagement is going to earn you the right to have an inceptive discussion with them. Then you're going to give them information that's going to lead them to the natural realization that they want and need the product or service that you're offering. Remember, want and need. Want is emotional, need is logical, and you want to achieve both of those things in the delivery of your story. Then, having done that, you're going to teach them how to buy from you and potentially not from other people, not from other companies. Then you're going to give them a compelling call to action where you've reversed the risk, you've created a significant value juxtaposition, you've made it as easy as possible, and post-transaction, you give them as much certainty as you can that they've done exactly the right thing. That is inception marketing. Thank you so much for attending this program. I hope that you've gotten as much value out of it as the fun that I've put into it. It's been a lot of fun. I also want to leave you with a couple of thoughts. I really hope that I get to meet you live at one of our events one day. we do a very powerful 2-day workshop around inception marketing, where you start at the beginning of the 2 days, we do super long hours, and we work through the entire process as a big group. And we do those all over the world. So keep your eyes out. And if you ever want to come to one, let our help desk know, and they'll try to find one in a city near you. We also offer a really compelling 5-day business training called the Business Freedom Program. We also offer a really compelling 5-day business training called the Business Freedom Experience, which is very much like an MBO rather than MBA, right? It's a master's in business ownership. It's all about how to own your business. And we have a really, really fun and extremely powerful 5-day speaking program. If you're curious about public speaking, if you want to become a better communicator, then definitely check that out and come and see me live one day. I hope I get to meet you. Thank you so much for engaging with our product. I'm really glad to have you as a client. And as I say, I hope we get to meet in person. We're clear. Wow. Once again, Isabel, thank you so very much. I really, truly thought I was going to have to re-record the whole thing. And what's really funny, Isabel and the rest of you, is very often I don't handwrite this stuff. We add it in post. We actually add the text on, like I just talk and the text just pops up. But I felt like writing it today, and all of a sudden I was feeling like I had made a horrible, horrible mistake. So thank you for helping us out with that. And also, thank you guys so much for helping. We are going to have a very short break right now. We're going to have a little mini wrap party for 3 minutes while we celebrate that we finished the core recording part. And here's what's going to happen after the break. As I said, we're going to talk about business freedom. I'm going to share with you some principles that you probably need at this point. Let me be clear. Inception marketing can be a little dangerous if you're not set up for it. Really stop for a minute. Actually, here's what I want to know. Honest to goodness, write to me in the comments. What would happen if you doubled or tripled your sales over the next 2 months by using what we've just learned? What would happen? I know the good stuff. I know there's some good stuff, but how many of you feel like it might stress you out a little? How many of you feel like it could actually be dangerous? So I'm curious to hear some feedback about that. What I want to share with you is that after the break, we're going to talk about some really useful distinctions in the business freedom world that are going to give you some tools for how you can make sure you're ready for big increases in sales. And then after that, and then I'm going to share with you some of the ways that we might be able to support you with that as well. And then after that, I'm going to get into Q&A and take your guys' questions and case studies and do a little bit of live coaching with some people, and we're going to have a whole lot of fun. Cool? I'll see you again in about 3 to 5 minutes.
Ready?
Welcome back. Welcome back. Did you have a good break? All right. So now let's talk. Let's talk. We are going to do some, I've seen lots of questions and great comments from you guys, and we're going to address those. I just think that there is something really important to discuss right now, and that is building a business that allows you to explode your sales. As I said before, I've seen it happen far too many times where somebody, either through luck or through strategy ends up with a huge influx of business and they just can't handle it. And so I want to describe what business freedom really is. Business freedom is owning a company that is, in a sense, an organic thing that manages itself, that you don't need to be there for. Now, I want you to think, as a matter of fact, there are two types of business freedom. There's business freedom where you have a completely organic company that you're just an owner of and you don't need to be there at all. You get reports and the company has a great manager and it just runs smoothly and you don't need to be there at all. So let's call that type 1 business freedom. And then there's type 2 business freedom. And type 2 business freedom is like business freedom that involves a passion-based business. So for example, maybe you're a physician or an architect or a coach or an author. You're something where you are the business. But here's the thing. A lot of times people think, well, I can't have business freedom because I am the business. No, absolutely you can. You can build a business that is robust and doesn't need you to be there. And you absolutely should build a business like that, because what happens if one day something happens to you? Something happens to you where you can't go to work for 2 months for whatever reason. Something good happens to you where you need to be away, or something bad happens. Whatever the case may be, what would happen to your business if you just disappeared for two months? What if you needed to be with your family during that time? So business freedom is a really important thing to have. And in a passion-based business, it can happen. But here's what it looks like. In a passion-based business, 100% of what you do on a day-to-day basis is important and not urgent and not necessary for the business to proceed. It takes the business forward, yes, but not necessary for the business to continue making profits. So a type 2 business freedom is where you are in there and you're working all the time if you want to be, and working when you don't want to be. A great example of this is that a friend of mine owned a very large securities trading firm in Western Canada. I think it was the largest trading firm in Western Canada. And yeah, he was the owner, sure, he was the president, and he had a beautiful office, huge office that he hardly ever was in, because he had a trading desk, because he was sitting at the trading desk. He just loved trading. And so he had real business freedom. He didn't need to be on the trading desk. He also didn't need to be running the company because other people were doing that. But it allowed him the freedom to be on the trading desk and do what he wanted. So let's call that type 2 business freedom. So I want to run a quick poll right now. Which of them do you want? Which kind of business freedom do you want? Type 1, where you have a company that you don't even have to be there at all, or type 2, you have a company that while you don't have to be there, you are there and you're working on your passion and your dreams. Which one do you want? Give me some indications on what we're seeing there.
Lots of 2s.
Lots of 2s?
Passion 1, both.
Both?
Mix of 1
It's
and 2.
like 50.
It's pretty 50-50?
Yeah, one with passion.
Yeah, it's pretty 50-50. And by the way, when you say both, here's what I want you to know. When you have business freedom, you start other businesses very often. I'm sure many of you have already done that, right? So isn't it possible, like for example, in an extreme case, could I not walk down the street and buy a dry cleaner and use inception marketing to boost up its revenues, because they're sitting on break even? I can buy the dry cleaner for very little money. I mean, you can do this when you understand inception marketing. You can get into buying companies and turning them around and reselling them, because mostly what's missing from these companies is effective marketing. So couldn't I go buy some company like a restaurant or a franchise or a dry cleaner or a gas station or whatever, and own that company with business freedom where I did not need to be there, but then start my own passion-based business too? Couldn't I do that? Yeah, I have done that. I have companies that I have nothing to do with. Isn't that nice? So you absolutely can have both. I just wanted you to give some thought to which one you'd prefer, and maybe, the realization that both could be pretty cool too. So with that in mind, I was thinking a little bit about what would be best for me to share with you in terms of principles of business freedom. Now, you need to know, if I really went all out on this, we would need like 5 full-time days, and I'd be talking a lot of it, and you'd have a lot of questions, and we're not going to go that deep. So I thought about it. Like, for example, we teach this really powerful diagnostic tool called role maps, which is like 3-dimensional organizational charts, and it really helps you to build a solid business. I think that takes a little bit long in the time I think that we have here, because I want to answer a lot of your guys' questions. We also do something called mini exits. where, hey, you may have an exit strategy for your overall company, but let's be clear about something. I mean, in fact, I saw this business guru once, and he went up to the audience and he's like, I don't think you need a business exit strategy. I mean, if you got on a plane and you knew that the pilot had an exit strategy, would you want to get on the plane? Ha, ha, ha. I wouldn't get on the plane if the pilot didn't have an exit strategy. Would you? The pilot's exit strategy should be to fly to the location that I bought my ticket for, land safely, get us to the gate, open the doors, let us out, and make sure my bags are there. If the pilot doesn't have an exit strategy, I'm not going. And I think that it is important to recognize that you want to build a business that would allow you to exit, but what you can't predict anymore is what that exit strategy might be. It's too difficult to predict that these days. But what I can tell you is that if you have not exited from some of the jobs that you're doing right now, then you can never exit at all. Are you with me? Like, very often an entrepreneur is doing many of the jobs inside the company. So if you want to be able to one day sell that company or license it or franchise it or partner it off, well, you're going to need to have made a series of mini exits and sort of step out of some of the roles you're in. That's a really powerful topic to go through, and there's some cool psychological and budgeting things that I could share with you. But then I started thinking that you really can't do that unless you figure out how to attract the best people. And I think maybe that's where I can help you the most today. How many of you have ever hired nice, ineffective people, or been at a company and watched the company hire nice, ineffective people? Any of you had that experience? So what I want to do is I want to share with you an interview strategy that will make sure that you never hire nice, ineffective people again, so that you are hiring powerfully effective people. This is extremely valuable, what I'm about to show you, and I'll tell you why. Hiring nice and effective people is one of the most expensive mistakes you can make in your business. Remember what it means. It means spending money on recruiting, spending time on interviewing, spending time and money on training, and then spending money on salary while you figure out that the person is nice and ineffective. And then one day it means having to fire them, and that may result in a whole bunch of legal stuff or not. And then it means having to start the recruiting process over again. And not only have you lost a bunch of time and money, but you've also lost time in terms of the depth of experience of the employee. It's expensive. So what we want to do is make sure that you, as you grow your business, hire the very best people. Does that sound like a good topic for you guys? Can you just confirm for me that we got that? I just want to make sure we're picking something that resonates for people.
Yeah, so true, yes, please.
Okay, cool. All right, so with that in mind.
Go deep, Eric, we're all ears.
Go deep. All right, let's do it, I'm in. All right, by the way, we're gonna just keep going till Saturday night. You guys in? Just keep going. I can go all the way through. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do is, first of all, to analyze how not hire people, to analyze how mistakes are made in this area, let's take a look at the way most people are interviewing. Yeah, you can,
Yeah,
all good.
great.
We're just having a little technical thing with cameras. At this point, this is all fun. All the recording now is fun. You can do whatever you
But
want.
he can move it so that we get good footage. Someone's asking if you need to fill your water bottle. What are the purchases?
Oh, you're so sweet. And you know, you're so sweet, and I know you weren't doing that for a prize, so I'm not even gonna give you one. That was just really sweet. Thank you. It's got water.
Okay.
We filled it during the break.
Good stuff.
Here's what I'm curious of. Was that Elise by any chance?
Oh, yeah.
That's my wife. Every event, she tells the crew, make sure Eric drinks. He's up there on the stage and he always forgets to drink. So, we could just move the webcam. We can move the webcam, that's fine. Go back to where you were and we'll move it. What he's trying to do is he wants to capture this a little bit better and put the cameras in alignment. So just bear with me 1 second here. Yeah, that's totally fine. Just make sure the guys say the feed looks good.
Is it good?
Can we tilt it down a little bit?
Yeah, we've got the microphone popping. There we go.
Cool?
Yeah.
Is that good for you? I think you're gonna get the camera in your shot a little. Sorry guys, hold on. You still have another maybe 4 inches you can come forward, I think, if you need it. There you go.
Lynn also says to move the chart maybe over that way. Sign it.
Is that good for you, the chart like that?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. All right, let's jump in, guys. So when we analyze what goes wrong with an interview, well, let's look at the way a normal interview works. People apply, they maybe fill out an application form or they send in a resume or CV. Okay, good. We look at that, we make a decision whether we want to interview them. Then we bring them in for the interview. And ultimately, if we're really clear, most interviewing is really just a matter of us trying to figure out whether we like them or not. You know, whether we've got resonance. I mean, sure, you might be trying to check a little bit about their, job experience and what training they've had and so on. But ultimately, the real exercise of an interview is about resonance. And so the problem with that is that very often we have resonance with people that are like us. So first thing to remember, don't hire people that are just like you. I know you probably already know this on some level, but I got to tell you, it's one of the most common mistakes I see with people. Here's what I mean. Maybe some of you are creatives. I'm going to guess there's a few creatives on the call here with us. I'm going to guess. And so creatives often have like a real optimistic view of the world, and they talk fast, and they've got big ideas. And so then they might do an interview that looks like this. It kind of goes like this. So I'm so glad you came in for the interview. We're doing this with the company. We grew that. We launched this, and we're going to take over the whole world. And then the person being interviewed says, oh my God, that's incredible. I'm so excited by that. I could do that, and I have these ideas, and we could definitely take over the world. Should we hire that person? No. Do we hire that person? Yeah, because it's fun and it's exciting and we have resonance. The problem is that person has many of the same strengths as you and many of the same weaknesses as you, and you're going to end up arguing about who has to do what and who gets to do what because you like doing the same things. Your business is going to require a spread of inclinations and skill sets. You need different personalities in your business. I'm curious, how many of you believe in personality profiling? And maybe how many of you think personality profiling is like, like horoscopes? Oh no, I shouldn't say that because a lot of people believe in horoscopes too. How about like, it's like fortune cookies? No, I think people believe in fortune cookies too. Whatever, what I'm asking you is how many of you think that personality profiling is really good science and a lot of you think it's actually rubbish? So I'm curious what you think. And while you guys might comment on that, here's my observation for you. If you want to become an air traffic controller, then you have to do a huge array of personality profiling or psychometric tests. Some of them are written, some of them are oral, and some of them are game theory. You have to do a bunch of them. And as a result of doing all this tests, they get to find out what your core personality type is. And let me be very clear, there's only one personality type that they hire to be air traffic controllers. And guess what? It's not creative people. I want you to think about that. Would you like a creative person handling your air traffic control experience? So you've got to remember that your business needs those different people. So the first thing is if you're sitting down in an interview with somebody and you've got really powerful resonance with them, that might be a problem. Okay, that said, in the interviewing process, we are often interviewing in order to find out if we like somebody, if they're nice, if we feel like they'll have a fit, right? And so what I want to suggest to you is that we need to try a different approach because that approach ends up hiring nice and effective people. I also want to suggest to you that it might not always be such a good idea to use placement companies without the formula that I'm about to share with you. You know what I'm talking about? Headhunters and employees or companies that go out and try and track down and find people for you. Those companies can be really, really useful, but you need to know that in my experience, the vast majority of them are simply out there collecting resumes and they're not doing that great a job of vetting people. Now, many of them do, but just my experience hasn't been so good with that. In fact, I had a crazy one where my company was growing really fast in England and I needed a bunch of salespeople. So I recruited a headhunter. They went and got me some people to interview. They told me they'd pre-interviewed, so really all I had to do is make sure I didn't really dislike them. They came in, went for the interviews. Well, a couple of them were okay, but one guy came in, and I had never seen the series The Office. I don't know how many of you guys have seen the original British version of The Office. I had never seen that series. So when some of my staff told me that the guy we hired was a lot like the main character, his name is David Brent, played by Ricky Gervais, a lot of people told me that this guy looked a bit like him and acted a bit like him. Anyway, he worked for us for about 3 months, and it turned out he was a mess. I mean, he was just ineffective and political and difficult, and just nobody liked him, and he just wasn't creating any results. And so one day, I ended up having to fire him. Well, okay, so that was unpleasant. I don't like firing people. But then a friend of mine showed me the series The Office. And I was watching The Office, and I was amazed because this guy, he looked exactly like Ricky Gervais, and he acted more like David Brent than Ricky Gervais does. And if you've seen the series, you'll know how funny that is. It was hilarious. And then about a week later, I had a new headhunter company call me and say, hi, we'd like to handle your staff recruiting requirements. And I said, no, I'm not doing that anymore. And they said, why not? And I go, because I feel like you don't vet the people well. I mean, I said, just a few weeks ago, a company just like yours approached us looking to help us with salespeople. I decided to give them the chance. And they sent me a sales guy who looked and acted more like David Brent than Ricky Gervais does. And the woman on the phone goes, Was his name Malcolm? She knew him from that description. It was hilarious. She knew. He was on her books as well, because guess what? A lot of the people that go to those companies are unemployed, and they're not so good at selling themselves to get a job, so they're going out to one of those placement companies to sell them themselves. So one more clue. If you're going to use a placement company, use the formula that I'm about to show you, but also in many of the jobs that you want to hire for, particularly in sales, I would advise generally against hiring somebody who's unemployed. That may sound a little unkind, but if you're hiring somebody for a sales position or a marketing position and they're unemployed, maybe you need to ask some questions about how good a salesperson they are if they're still unemployed. I know it's a little bit harsh, and I think that sometimes in business we need to be a little bit harsh, and that's just something you need to think about. Now, with all of that out of the way, let's talk about an effective interviewing process. An effective interviewing process is going to be designed to prove that the candidate has the skill sets that you need in your company and has the traits that you need in your company. So this is going to be all about how to avoid hiring ineffective people. So the first thing is that when you bring people in for the interview, you need to remember that most people that show up for an interview are nervous. Yes? That means that they're under some stress. And so if they're under stress, you're not actually getting to meet them, you're getting to meet their stress personality. And while meeting their stress personality is interesting, you really want to get to know who they really, really are. Because when people on their stress personality, they're kind of on best behavior, this is why relationships often don't make it. I'll be clear, if you meet somebody, if you're a woman and you see a guy across the room and he just, really catches you on fire, like if your ovaries respond and you're like, oh my God, you should probably walk the other way. Because what that means is you're going to be willing to alter your personality in order to try to attract that person. And then you're either going to be stuck being that person that you never really were, or one day he's going to meet the real you, and that's going to create a conflict because that's maybe not who he was attracted to. Men, same thing. You see a woman and it all happens for you. You're like, you have to have her? Well, let me tell you something. That's the scary moment because you're going to start altering your personality. And the same thing with somebody when they go in to get a job. When they're under stress, they alter their personality. I often am really clear that my wife and I were very lucky because we were best friends for 2 years before we ever even went on a date. And not only were we best friends, she was off limits to me because she had dated a friend of mine and the bro code and all that. I couldn't even see her in that way, which meant she never saw my alternate personality that I might have put on in a dating environment. She just met me, same for me with her. Well, you want the same thing when you're doing an interview, right? Don't you? You want to meet the actual person, not their stress personality. So the first step is to help them to relax. You want to do everything you can to help them to relax. Welcome them, acknowledge them, tour them around, treat them warmly, use a warm tone of voice. I am amazed how often people come for an interview, like, you're here for the interview? Okay, good, come on in for the interview. So tell me about your last work experience. Really? You're never going to meet them if you do that. If you meet that, you're going to put them under stress and you're going to meet their stress personality. That's not the person you're hiring unless you want people under stress all the time. I had a boss like that once in Vancouver. Not a nice work environment, I can tell you. So we get them to relax. Does this make sense to you? So once we've got them to relax, what we're going to do is then we're going to do a little bit of probing. Not UFO abduction style probing. I'm talking questions. You're going to start asking some questions. And I want to be clear, you're not going to ask the questions that they're used to. Don't ask the questions they've been, you're going to ask atypical, odd, weird questions that they weren't expecting. Look, when you go up to them and you're in the interview and you say, so, tell me, why did you leave your last job? Okay, let's be really clear. Right before the interview, they were in the bathroom, weren't they? They were in the bathroom and they were looking in the mirror and they're going, okay, so why did you leave your last job? Well, I left my last job because no, that's too much. Okay. I left my I left my last job because I had felt that the opportunities there were limited and they've been practicing. Don't ask them a question they've been rehearsing for. You're not going to get a genuine answer anymore. They've gone and rehearsed it. They've asked their friends what they should say. They've Googled on a blog what the right answer for that question is. No, there's no point. You're not going to get the truth. You want to ask some more general questions. How about this? Hey, where's your favorite place to go on vacation? Were they expecting that? No, it's small talk. It's going to help them to relax, and you're going to learn some things about them. Because if they say to you, oh, my favorite place to go on vacation, you know what? I love to go to Vancouver Island in the west coast of Canada. the old growth trees and camping in the breeze and going up to the coastline on the West Coast Trail or up to Port. I mean, that whole area, I just love that. Have you learned something about them? Yeah, they're a nature buff. You know they're going to want to go camping from time to time. And frankly, in my opinion, they're probably good people. What about the other person who says, oh yeah, my favorite vacation, Vegas, baby. I love Las Vegas. I love it. I go down there for the weekend. Last time I went to Vegas, no kidding, I woke up in Bangkok. Hello? Did you just learn something useful about this person? Yeah, not to hire them, I'm thinking, right? So you'll be amazed that when you relax them and get them into their normal personality, you'll be amazed at the stuff they're willing to share with you. So you ask them atypical questions, you ask them about their family life, you get to know them and not the canned responses. Now, in this program, I'm going to teach you a kind of question you're going to ask, and I want you to notice how subtle and how beautiful this is, and you're going to think it's silly, but it works. Because now what you're going to do is you're going to take out your phone. You're going to take out your phone, and maybe it's on your desk, and you're going to lift it up, and you're going to look at the prospect right in the eyes, and you're going to say, hey, I'm curious. If I were to pick up the phone right now and I were to call your old boss, your old supervisor, your old manager, and I were to ask your manager, you know, what they thought of you, what would they say? Now, listen to me carefully. You heard the language, but the miming, if you don't have a phone, mime it. But if you've got a phone, pick it up. If you've got a phone on your desk, pick it up, because what that's going to do is communicate something to them that you might actually do this, or that you might even be doing it right then, even though they know you're not. Look, if you've ever done one of these high wire exercises, you know, you can be up on a high wire with a safety line, right? Your body does not know about the safety line, does it? Your heart still pounds, your breath's still hard, you still get dizzy from the vertigo, and you have a safety line on. You're perfectly safe. Well, in the interview, when you do this, you see our physiology communicates so much of our message that it's going to make them feel like their boss is actually on the phone. And then the answer they're going to give you is going to be, I did this the first time, it blew me away. I looked at, hey, tell me something. If I had your boss on the phone right now, what would your ex-boss have to say about you? And the prospect said this to me the very first time he did. He goes, oh yeah, he'd say he really liked me, and I was very productive. I sold very well. He'll also say that I was probably late more often than I should have been. He just told me right out the bat one of his problems. And you know what was funny? After he left, I called his boss. I said, hey, yeah, tell me about so-and-so. He came in for an interview, and I'm curious what your thoughts are. And he goes, hey, he's a good guy. I really liked him. He sold well, but the guy was late all the time. I mean, it was almost word for word. And so you pick up the phone, and you just, and you can do the same thing. Hey, tell me, well, if I had one of your old coworkers here, what would they say about your communication and your team spirit? They'll tell you the truth. So you probe, and you mime in the probing, and you will learn some things that are really powerful about them. And then you attack them. No, not in the New York subway back alley attack. I'm not talking about that kind of thing. I'm talking about you attack them on the traits that you want them to have. You're going to give them now an opportunity to prove to you that they're the right candidate. This is it here, guys. Listen to me really carefully. If you never want to hire nice, ineffective people again, you do this step. It's so very important. And it goes like this. You say, you know, I've really enjoyed getting to know you. I like you, and I think you've got some. I think you got some potential. I think you could fit in here. I will share with you that I'm a little bit concerned. I feel as though our environment might be a bit competitive, and I'm not really picking up that really driven competitive energy from you. What do you think about that? And then they're going to defend themselves. Now, if you're in the United States, you don't have to add, what do you think about that at all? Most Americans, you tell them this, they'll just defend themselves right off the bat. The trouble is in other cultures are not often as outspoken. So if you're in Canada, for example, if you're in England, and definitely if you're in Scandinavia, you need to add that piece on that says, and Australia and South Africa too, just as a few examples, and most of Asia, you need to add this thing on that we call the Scandinavian twist, which is where you do that. You go, I'm just not picking up that super driven competitive, I'm just not picking that up from you. And then you say, what do you think about that? If you don't do that in Scandinavia, here's what's happening in the person's head. Well, then you just don't understand. And then they leave. You lose what could have been a really great candidate. In America, the person will defend themselves right away. But in those other countries, they have a bit of a softer culture. If you add the, What do you think about that? Then that gives them permission to defend themselves. Now, you're going to get 3 types of defense. 3 types of defense. The one you want is like this. Oh, well, maybe you're not getting that from me right now because I feel very relaxed in this interview environment. But I got to tell you, I am super committed. I'm very, very, very competitive. And I'm absolutely going to make it work here. I've been the top producer, and they start defending themselves, right? That's what you want. You want them to start defending themselves. And what you don't want is the other 2 responses. Here's one. You'll be amazed that this will actually happen. Remember, you've just said, and I'm just not getting that driven competitive edge from you. What do you think about that? And then the person goes, yeah, okay. Thank God you found out now. You just saved yourself 3 months of salary. You're not going to hire that person. Thanks for the interview. Out you go. And then the third response you're going to get, and this will happen from time to time, it goes like this. Hey, you know, I'm just not picking up that super competitive driven energy from you. What do you think about that? They go, what? I don't understand. What are you talking about? I'm super driven. Wow. You're going to have the occasional meltdown. You're going to find out that they were a nut bar from the beginning. And thank God you found out now, because that person was a lawsuit waiting to happen. And you've just saved yourself hundreds of thousands of dollars. So what some of you are now wondering is, can you use this for all positions? Because the way I just described it might be good for a salesperson. Well, let's try it out for an accountant. Okay. Oh, listen, thanks very much for coming down. I really appreciate you coming in for the interview. I've enjoyed it. I like it. I think we've got a good rapport going here. Here's the thing. Our company is really quality centric, and getting our accounts produced really accurately and super on time are really important to us. And I'm just not getting that from you, that like super commitment to quality and like on time delivery. I'm just not really getting that from you, right? You can do this with any position in the business. You can do this with any trait that you want to lock in and confirm they have. In fact, you know, we run a really tight ship around here. Like, we open at 9 o'clock in the morning, but we don't have where people show up at 9 and then they hang up their coat and they go get a drink and they stop at the water cooler and they don't start working until 9:15. Our people typically show up around 8:30, even though the clock doesn't start till 9, and they take care of all that social stuff at 8:30. And, you know, I think that's because we run a pretty high pressure place here. I mean, it's a lot of fun, but I'm not really getting that promptness thing from you. Well, at this point, whether they are normally prompt or not, they're going to defend themselves and they're going to make a commitment to be prompt. And so first of all, you're going to sometimes find out what traits it is they do or they don't have. And other times what you're going to do is get them to commit to locking in to particular traits. Now, one last thing, bonus content for you. You have decided to hire them, let's say. Then I want you to just think about an important thing, and that is their first day. Because their first day sets the tone for everything else that happens in the business. Everything else that happens in their career. And I want you to remember that on their first day, they are feeling tremendous amounts of uncertainty and nervousness. And so the best, if you can put together a plan, if you can put together something that really locks it down so that they feel really welcomed and important and certain from the first day, then they won't link that general feeling of nervousness to the entire office. And so you should have a written induction procedure for exactly what happens when somebody comes in, and that way you can improve it. You can, when they come in, they get this, they get welcome to this situation, they get shown their login and their ID, they get shown to their desk, we show them where the water cooler is, we show them the emergency exits. Okay, maybe not emergency. Yeah, you want to show them everything. So what I'm getting at is that if you have a really tight induction procedure, then what you're going to do is set them up for a feeling that of real certainty from day one, and that's going to help a great deal. So there's a lot more to that. We could go a lot deeper. In fact, I think, it occurred to me after, I think we even, yeah, anyway, I think, sorry, what was that?
Nothing.
I think we even have a product about how to hire and train people, and you know, maybe one day you'll hear about that another time. But I hope that that gives you guys a little bit of, you know, a little bit of strategy and tools around how to go out and make sure that you get the very best people as you grow your business. Let me be very clear. The quality of your business life going forward is going to be directly related to the quality of the people that you attract around you. That's just the way it's going to be. And so if you start off with a great interviewing process that can filter a lot of the negative stuff out from the beginning, you're going to save yourself a huge headache and you're going to save yourself a whole lot of money. So I hope that's been helpful for you. Now, with that in mind, I want to talk to you a little bit more about what business freedom really means. And I want to share with you maybe how I can support you in that a little bit. First of all, again, what business freedom means is that you build a business that supports the lifestyle you want. As I've said to you before, I believe that entrepreneurship is the ultimate expression of personal freedom when it's practiced properly. And I believe that starting a business is really all about you having the capacity to put in a lot of effort and focus and work in the short term so that you can create a lifestyle that many other people don't even allow themselves to dream about. That's really what business freedom is about. It means that you don't have to be there. It means that when you go to the office, you are doing what you want to be doing. By the way, maybe some of you guys are interested in law of attraction. Anybody interested in law of attraction? I imagine so. I'll see the comments in a minute here. But what I want to suggest to you is that I can break down law of attraction for you so much more simply now than I mean, look, The Secret, most of the people in The Secret are very good friends of mine. I want to put to you that that was a very heavily edited show, and just about every single one of those people also believes that you have to do some shit. You know, you have to do stuff from time to time. It's not like just meditate it up. But I want to break down law of attraction for you in a much more simple term. Attraction happens when you are doing what you love. That's it. You are at your most attractive when you are doing what you love. It's that simple. That's law of attraction right there. You want to hire the best people? Do what you love. You want to get the best customers? Do what you love. You want the best investors? Do what you love. I've known this for a long time, but I got to tell you something, even more now than ever before, because I'll tell you, no business in my entire business life has been more passionate for me than WildFit. And I got to tell you, we routinely have people saying, hey, can I invest? Can I be a part of it? Can I help you grow it? Can I launch it in another country? They are attracted. Why are they attracted? Because it's effective and powerful, but mostly because I love it and I love what I'm doing. Same with business freedom. I love it. So business freedom is about helping you build a life where you get to do what you love, both in terms of the business itself, in terms of the jobs you're doing inside the business, and the free time to be traveling and doing what you love. Every single year that I owned my first company, I took 12 to 14 weeks of vacation every single year, including year one. And people would often ask me, well, Eric, how could you do that? How could you take that much vacation time? And I'm like, how could I not? I didn't get into business to be in an office all the time. I got into business to be a business owner. And so I went on vacation. But what was really fascinating is, rather than hurting me, going on these long, and by the way, me, if you know me at all, you'll know vacation for me might involve deep, dark, middle of Africa somewhere, nowhere near technology. So then people couldn't even reach me. So what did that do? It broke my addiction to the business, because I want you to know now, one of the things that people have to overcome to create business freedom is their own addiction to working hard. And then the other one is it broke the business's addiction to me. The business learned to make decisions. But you know what else was fascinating? My clients loved to hear the stories of all these adventures I was doing around the world. They loved it. I'd tell them about the time the rhinos nearly killed me in the Waterberg near Botswana, and the time that I walked around a corner and there were a bunch of lions sitting over here, and you know, when I climbed Kilimanjaro, or the time that a whale came up right beside my kayak. They love that stuff. And so again, because I was doing what I loved, I was creating attraction. And so business freedom is about you creating a life of maximum attraction. Does that make sense to you? All right. So I would like to suggest that I can support you guys in getting some business freedom. And I know many of you have been asking questions, because we've given away some of our programs, and we still have a couple of business freedom experience tickets to go. Who wants those? I'm curious. Anyway, so what I want to do, I want to give you some answers to the questions you guys have been asking about that, in terms of ways that I might be able to support you going forward. Does that sound good? All right. And then we're going to get to all your questions and the case studies and stuff after we take a little bit of a break. So the first thing is, some of you guys have been asking me about personal mentoring. I don't really do a great deal of that anymore. I only ever really take on a couple of clients a year. It's not something that I tend to do. It's only by application. It's not something you can just buy. But I do some mentoring, and I'll give you an idea of what that looks like. It basically means that we spend 3 hours a month on the phone together. That can either be in one phone call or 2 1.5-hour phone calls that can be discussed between us. And those phone calls are about anything that you need them to be about to help you transition your business. And when people do that mentoring with me, they get those monthly calls, and they also get access to everything that I do. They get access to all of my digital programs. They get VIP access to all of my live events. So that's mentoring with me. Mentoring with me is $10,000 per month. So I'm going to guess for most of you that's a little bit price prohibitive, and it doesn't matter. I only take on 1 or 2 clients a year. If you're compelled to talk to us about that, reach out to my team. We'll set up a meeting. We'll have a conversation. We'll see if there's a fit there for us. I know that that's not for most of you, and that's fine. I just wanted to be clear because a lot of you had asked about it. What I also want to share with you is some ways that might be a little bit more practical around directly available things for you. The first thing is, I'm curious, how many of you guys, look, you've seen this for free. Do you think this program is valuable, the whole Inception Marketing Program? Do you guys think it's valuable? You know what I'd be curious of? What do you guys think the retail price of this program should be? I'm really curious. I actually am really curious. I want to get some answers in from you guys. It's going to be the whole 9 modules.
6,000.
It's also going to come with a bunch of extra templates and documents.
5K, 4K. The lowest is $995, the highest is 5,000.
Okay, so we've had a lot of people in the $4,000 to $6,000 range. One person says $995.
Someone says 10.
Somebody says 10,000. Do you now understand what I'm talking about? Give more value than you're asking people to spend. So this IMI, or IMVT we call it, the Inception Marketing Video Training, is going to be, sorry, can you guys remind me? Oh, I have it here. Yeah, it's actually going to be $597. It's only going to be $600. You guys, and I'm not selling it to you right now, I'm just telling you, you've had it for free. If you want to buy it, it's only going to be $600. So you guys are telling me that it's worth a lot more money than that, which is making me think we underpriced it. I'm kidding. We always knew that people would feel that way about it.
US dollars.
Yes, this is US, USD. Everything is US. So that's the Inception Marketing Video Training. You guys have all had the program for free, and you still have another day or day and a half of access to the videos and so on. So I don't fully expect that that's something for most of you. And we knew that by opening this up to the world, we might be cutting off a little bit of our market by giving it away for you for free. But I suspect that some of you might feel compelled to tell people about this in the future. So I think it was still a good investment. Now, another option that I really want to encourage some of you guys to look at is, how many of you guys would like to do this with me live? Like, I mean you and me and a group of people live, Inception Marketing, 2 full days, full workshop, workbook, stage, slides. We go through the whole process together. We do a lot of coaching. You guys in for doing that? So the Inception Marketing Intensive, we call it, is a very intensive, super fun 2-day event. And that 2-day event is, it's $1497. So if you ever want to come to that, make sure that you keep an eye on our events calendar, reach out to our help desk, and they can always try to find an Inception Marketing that's happening in a city near you. And oftentimes we get enough requests in a given city, we'll actually add a city to the calendar based on that, because it's a very, very popular program. So the Inception Marketing Intensive is something super fun that I think a lot of you guys would get value from. And I know many of you, in fact, a few of you have already, just from being on this with us, have already bought tickets to the Business Freedom Experience. So it wasn't really kind of our intention here, but I'm okay with that. I hope you guys are too. So the Business Freedom Experience is a 5-day intensive MBO program, a Master's in Business Ownership. And what happens during the 5 days is that we go, the hours are intense and it's super high energy. It's like summer camp in business. It's really, really fun. We also play a game during the 5 days called Consortium, or Consortium, depending on how you want to pronounce it, where you will be on teams with other entrepreneurs and you will pick products. Real products from your team, might be your product or your service, and then your team will spend 5 days selling that stuff in the room, in the seminar, in the hotel, online. We've had teams that do tens. In fact, I think we had one team that did about $100,000 worth of sales just for their team, but routinely teams are doing tens of thousands of dollars worth of business during the weekend. Why do we do that? Because what I want, there's that old expression, to know and not to do is not to know, right? To know and not to do is not to know. Well, that's because people learn stuff and then they go out into their life. In fact, I saw a beautiful comment on the Facebook group today where a woman says, Eric, you're explaining this stuff so very clearly. You're making it very easy to understand. And then when I try to do the homework assignment for myself, I run into a mental block. Right. That's why we create some game theory around it. By putting people into a game environment, they get to test it. They've got a team around them and they test it and they get it wrong and they test it and they get it wrong and it gets better and better. So by the end of the 5 days, they actually fully know what they're doing, whether it's about leadership in their business, whether it's marketing, whether it's personality profiling to build the right types of teams. I mean, it's a very, very powerful program. And we've had some really cool stories come out of it. There was this one woman who had a product that she'd been trying to launch for years. It was a really, really neat product around really cute greeting cards that moms could put in their lunch boxes, in their kids' lunch boxes when they sent them to school. And she tried to launch this program and try to launch it. It wouldn't work. She came to the program and she introduced that product to the team. The team built the whole system for her. They showed her how internet marketing works, because we teach internet marketing and sales automation funnels. And she got more sales the day after. She got tons of sales during the weekend, but then I had lunch with her, or I actually bumped into her at the dining room the next day, and she says sales were still coming in for her. You see, we got to deliver more value than we're ever asking anybody to spend. So the Business Freedom Experience, it only happens once a year. It's in Stockholm, and it's a limited audience size. So if you're interested in coming to BFE, please connect with our team. By the way, because I really hadn't planned to do this, this is really, this part, I had a plan. I'll come to my plan in a minute. But the whole idea of like making the call to action really easy for you, we weren't planning to do this, so we didn't do that. So I don't have somewhere where you can just simply go and buy that program right now. If you're interested in coming to the 5-day program in Stockholm, then please reach out to our team and we'll help you out with that.
We do have a form they can fill out for that.
We do have a
Yeah,
form.
we did, we got it.
Okay, that's cool. So in any event, that's a 5-day program, and it's $3,997. It's $3,997. And incidentally, these two live events, those live events are covered by our complete blow your mind guarantee. Like complete your mind blown or your money back. It's that simple. So that's the Business Freedom Experience. And then you've heard me talk a little bit about the Business Freedom 365. We've actually given away a few of the BF 365 programs. The Business Freedom 365 is a 12-month, week-by-week video coaching program for your business. Every month has a general theme about it, and every week has a specific area of business for you to work on. So every Monday, you'll have a video. The videos last between 7 minutes and 45 minutes, depending on how deep the topic is. And then you'll learn about that topic. You're given resources like templates and workbooks and extra materials for, and like for example, we talk about HR and we give you the template for how to build your HR system so you never get sued by your employees. So in the Business Freedom 365 program, you're going week by week by week and transitioning your business toward business freedom. It's extremely powerful. We know that because it's an upgrade of our original Business Freedom Challenge, which was a 90-day version. And our clients are saying it was just too much to do in 90 days. They got more value than we could ever, like it was way more value than they invested. It's just they needed more than 90 days to do it. So we turned it into a year-long program. And so the Business Freedom 365 program is a great path. Whether you are yet to start your business or whether you are already in business, you will find it extremely transformative. And that program is $4,997. And then the last option here I have for you, for a few of you, this is an interesting option for a few of you. This is for those of you who want to work with me personally, but the mentoring is not really available to you at the moment at $10,000 a month. And I fully respect that. And so we have the Business Freedom Mastermind. And the Business Freedom Mastermind involves spending a year with me. And the way that works is for the year, we have monthly calls, monthly Zoom facilitated calls, although they're not webinar format, they're teleconference format where I can actually see everybody and you can see me and we're all part of a big mastermind together. And what happens is that every month we get together and we share some content and then we do Q&A and masterminding and helping each other solve problems. There's a private Facebook group where the whole mastermind collects together and we spend a whole year working on your business where you get every month you get access to working with me on your business. It's a really, really powerful program. That program is also, it's also $10,000, but it's not $10,000 per month. It's $10,000 for the whole year. It's $10,000 a year, or actually, and I think there's a payment plan option for it where it's $1,000 per month. Andrea?
Yep.
Okay, so that mastermind is $10,000. Now, here's what I'm thinking. I hope that you'll take action on one of these things and spend some time with me, come to one of our live events or what have you. And I know that some of you are going, Eric, you've just given us too many choices. And some of you are thinking, oh, over the next 2 years, I'm curious, by the way, again, a little market survey here. Over the next 2 years or so, how many of you guys would like to be able to do all of that kind of stuff over a period of time, assuming that each program is helping you make the money to help you make this happen?
Yes.
Cool. So if you were to do all of that stuff with me over the space of 2 years or so, it would cost you, I think we did the math on this, it would cost you about $20,000 to do all of those things individually with me. What I want to suggest to you is this. How many of you would be interested in doing the mastermind with me if we were to cut the price of the mastermind in half for the people that are on this live broadcast? So if we cut the mastermind in half and made that only $5,000 or let's say $500 a month if you wanted to go on payments. Or how many of you guys would be interested in possibly doing something like that with me? Because here's my observation. Here's my thought. What I'd like to do is find a group of you, and we've already got quite a lot of people in this year's mastermind, and we've got space for about 20 or so more. And what I want to suggest to you is that if any of you guys want to join the mastermind and spend the year with me, I'll cut the price in half to $5,000 for the year or $500 a month. And then what I'll do is include all of this. And not only will I include all of this, because some of you have a business partner or a spouse that's in your business with you or something like that. And so what I'll do is I'll give you 2 of those and 2 of those instead of 1 each. So if you join the mastermind, I'll cut it in half to $5,000 or $500 a month. And I will throw all of this stuff in, and you get 2 tickets to the IMI and 2 tickets to the BFE. And so the team will give you a link where you can go and do that. After the fact, if any of you guys want individual things, you can reach out to the team and they'll sort you out. But if you want to have a really powerful, transformative year, let's do the whole thing together. Let's spend a year together and do the whole thing. We'll get together in Stockholm, we'll get together in one of these cities, and we'll spend a year together. And that way, and yeah, I think we'll have a ton of fun. There's space for about 20 or so people, so go ahead and click the link and register for that if you're curious about it. And I hope that's been helpful for you.
Yeah, there's a couple questions I'm just gonna ask you. So
Sure, go ahead.
Tickets, the tickets for the live events are good for how long?
Roland, that's a really good question. How long are the tickets? I think that in the BFE, they're good for 2 years. Well, you know what? Let's just make a decision. They're good for 2 years.
Okay. So
You can use the tickets to the live events for any time within 2 years. And I'll say this. Yeah, you can use them for 2 years. I want to be clear. The second ticket is not for you to go out and sell necessarily. It's really for you to give to somebody else in your business that you're in business with, like especially for married couples. I love when married couple entrepreneurs come to our events. So that's why we do that. So it's not really designed for you to go out and recruit a friend. And no, it's for you to bring somebody who's in your business or somebody you're thinking of being in business with, and then you bring them along to those events as our guest or as your guest.
Okay, and then the second one is, when does the year start? Which the answer to that is?
The answer to that is that the program starts on September 5th. The first live call is on September 5th, which brings up another really important point. Every live call is recorded and placed into the membership site. So when you join the mastermind, you become a member of businessfreedom.com, and that's where you'll find all the videos to the Business Freedom 365, and your other video training programs will be in your membership site. And then all of the live calls. So say if you miss some of them, you're on vacation or whatever, you will not miss the content because it will be recorded and uploaded to your membership site. So you'll have it for as long as you're a member.
Okay. Those are the 2 big, and lots of people want to know about the public speaking.
Guys, let's do this with the public speaking stuff. Those programs sell out so very quickly, and I don't want to sell them out right now. We have some partners that we have to satisfy for tickets and that sort of thing. Can I offer you this instead? I will make this undertaking. Within the next 2 weeks, we will turn on a free public speaking training, okay? We'll give that to you completely for free, and at the end of that public speaking training, we will announce the dates for our 3 speaking academies, and then if you can find one near you want to come to, you can come. But I don't want to do that right now because we really do. We have partners that promote those, and if we don't have tickets for them to sell, it's bad for our relationship with them. So we have to help them first. So we will, within 2 weeks, it could be faster, but within 2 weeks, we're going to give you a free 3-part training on public speaking, which you're going to love anyway. And then at the end of that, we'll give you guys a link for registering for one of the live events. Is that cool? All right. So I think that's everything people need to know about that. What I want to do now is I want to start talking to some live people. And I know that we have some of our customers. What I love about this is that we've had people on these calls that I've known for many years. We've had clients, and we've also had people I've never met before. We have people that have done WildFit, never met me, but seen me on video. It's been a huge variety of people. But now what I want to do is talk to a couple people live. Now help me out, guys. We have, do we have a couple of customers we can talk? I'd love to connect. Do we have Michael? I'd love to talk with Michael. I haven't seen Michael in a while. I think this would be cool. So guys, I'm about to introduce you. I haven't seen this technology at play, but apparently we're going to upgrade Michael as a panelist, and you're going to get to meet Michael. Bear with us. This is an experiment. It's new for us.
I think I'll have to rejoin.
Okay, why don't I go to some questions while you guys figure out the technology? How about that? Does that sound good? So feed me up the next question, and then we'll try and get the live people on, assuming they solve the technological thing. It was a quirky, fun thing that we thought we'd try, but we'll see. Okay, so what if I don't have a business? Who asked that question? Do we know?
There's a couple people who ask, what if I don't already have an existing business? Is this a good fit?
Okay, first of all, let's be clear. I could receive that question in two different ways. One is, how do I apply inception marketing if I don't really have a business? And the other one is, you might be asking, what if I don't have a business? Will these programs help me? Let me deal with the first one first. Inception marketing is the combination lock of influence. Like with the kid wanting to go to Disney. I mean, when you begin to understand that inception marketing works that way, it changes everything. I was living in a little town called Weston-super-Mare on the west side of England at one stage, and I was going away for a weekend, and there was a huge music festival going on at the weekend, and I just wanted to get out of town. But then my trip got canceled, and I ended up in town for that weekend. But now I didn't have tickets for the concert, and it was totally sold out. So think about that. I still want to go to the concert. I live on the beach, right? So my living room is like looking at the concert, but I want to go down and hang out with my friends in the concert. I don't have tickets. I could probably have jumped out my window, but I decided to try something else. And so what did I do? I walked around to the gate, and I had a conversation with the people at the gate. And I just said, hey, listen, I'm originally from Canada, and I keep an apartment here in Weston-super-Mare. And, I'm really curious about the concert. I've got some friends in the music industry and in the film industry and stuff, and I just happen to be in town. Now, what I was thinking about is, who's my ideal target market? The person at the gate is the influencer, and I need them to get me to a manager. What is the manager interested in? Influence. They're interested in having the right people around. And so what I did was, because I had a foreign accent, and then I had some contacts in music and in movie and what have you, the next thing you know, she brought the manager over, and she goes, yeah, absolutely. Hang on a second. And she walks over and gets me an all access pass. So I did not hang out with my friends. My friends were on the other side of the rope. I was right inside. And so it was really interesting. All I had done was think about what's important to them. What's important to them. So this works whether you're trying to figure out how to influence your children, and be really clear. I'm not talking about manipulating your children. I'm saying if you're not good at influencing your children, somebody else will be, right? So this stuff works no matter what. Now, if I take the question the second way, what if I don't have a business? Will this whole program help me? Absolutely it will. I think that, I hope you get by now that the way that I train and the way that I coach is, first of all, quite effective. But secondly, I'm really good at getting inside the mind of you, depending on the different stage of business you're at. So for example, at our live business freedom experience, we have clients in there that have yet to start their business. We have business school students in there. And then we equally, on the other side of it, we have people with 300, 400, 500 employees. And the feedback is the same from both, because we're learning practical, usable stuff. So if you haven't yet started your business, look, if you're going to build a high rise, when should you build the foundation? After you started building a high rise? I'm thinking let's get in there and let's build the foundation first. So great question. Thank you. Next.
I think we might be ready.
Oh, are we ready to go live?
Perhaps.
Okay, give me another question until you actually have him on the screen.
Yes.
Petros, at what point do you know you need to hire someone to help you? Oh, Petros, this is such a good question. Guys, this is such a good question. At what point do you know you need someone, you need to hire somebody to help you? Well, Petros, this is a very tough thing as an entrepreneur, because generally speaking, most entrepreneurs only realize they need somebody when it's too late. And here's how you know. You go, wow, you should really get yourself some help. And they're like, oh, I'm way too busy to train somebody. So I'm going to give you two really powerful things here to consider. The first thing is that you don't have to hire people full time. That may not sound so powerful, but very often the mental block people have about hiring is they start thinking about the annual salary figure or the monthly salary figure. What you can do is start off with casual. You can have people come in and help you on project by project basis. And then that's a great way of interviewing people, because if you really like them, then you can get them on part-time, and then you can move them toward full-time. So rather than thinking in terms of when do I hire somebody, you start thinking yourself, when can I use a little bit of help around here? Petros, does this help? Then what's after, then what you want to consider after that is that when you're thinking about hiring somebody, what often happens is people go, I'm way too busy. And so here's what you can do to fix that. Think of the job that you're going to want to hire somebody to do. And the next time you're doing it, write down all of the steps. Create a procedure for each of the tasks. And that way, when you finally do hire somebody, you're just going to show them a piece of paper and you go, this is how we do it around here. Right? Like consider, I know that sounds so basic and simple, but you'd be shocked to know how many business owners do not have that. Right? By the way, every single one of you that comes and does this mastermind with me, you will have an unbelievable manual to run your business 12 months from now. Your business, you'll be able to get a chimpanzee to come in and run your company, because you need to be able to do that. You need to be able to bring somebody in and go, here you go, these are the steps, rather than having to show them everything and having to explain everything. It's right there. And what you do is you go, okay, let's say you're hiring somebody that you know in bookkeeping and you want them to raise an invoice for you. Okay, you go, here's how we raise an invoice. And then they look at the sheet of paper and they go step 1, step 2, step 3. And if they run into a step that's unclear to them, they go, that's unclear. Now you know you need to improve the procedure, right? So Petros, I hope that helps you out. I hope that's useful to you, and great question. Do we have Perry?
Yeah, we're gonna go to Perry.
Oh, Perry. Okay, do we have Perry?
I'm here.
I need sound.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Perry.
Hi.
Oh, you guys,
Hi.
I want you to meet Perry, because Perry is a very, very good friend of mine, and he and I, we have almost literally been to hell and back together. Hell, what I'm talking about is the summit of Kilimanjaro several times. I've been running these leadership programs. I don't run them anymore, and don't ask my team to get me to. We don't do that leadership program anymore. But we used to run this leadership program where we took people up Kilimanjaro, and it was really cool. And Perry was often our brigade leader on that program. But the reason I thought it'd be cool to bring Perry in is that Perry was at the very, very, very first business talk I ever gave. And Perry, what I wanted to ask you to do, I love that, you remember the Entrepreneur Freedom Game?
Yes.
I would love for you to kind of share your experience of what it was like. So I'll describe the game a little bit, and I'd like them to hear your point of view. When we have a live audience, guys, what we do is we play this game where I tell everybody to stand up. Everybody stands up, and then I go, now, the object of the game is to stay standing. And then I'm gonna make some statements about you or your business. And as long as the statements are true, you stay standing. But if they're not true, you have to sit down. And so I say things like, you pay yourself at the market rates, or you take a certain amount of vacation, or you could go away for 2 weeks in your business. I have a bunch of criteria. But what ends up happening is everybody ends up sitting down, and in a room of 300 or 400 people, there might be one person standing at the end, and that's somebody who typically has business freedom, right? So anyway, I played that game for the very first time in London, and Perry played the game and didn't yet have business freedom. So Perry, I'd love to hear your side of that. I haven't heard you tell us in a long time, and I thought people might like it.
As you said, I attended this talk you were doing. In fact, I didn't actually know what you were talking about, because I was coming to listen to something about Kilimanjaro. So you play this game, and I stood up, and we went through the questions, and it was very exciting, because as you were asking the questions, I was watching people sit down all around me. And by the time it got close to the end, there was 2 of us standing, and then there was a final question. The final question was, if you could go away for a long period of time, something like a year, and would your business continue to thrive? I had to sit down, unfortunately. But essentially what happened was, I wasn't disappointed. It just triggered something in my head. It was like, wow, I was that close to achieving business freedom. And that really triggered, a journey for me, which you know about. So it was a very instrumental game for me in terms of what then happened over the coming years. I think that was a long time ago, about a few years. I mean, literally immediately after those questions, after that event, I literally started to look at the whole of my life and started to restructure my business. And the journey to business freedom happened very quickly soon after.
And Perry ended up doing the Business Freedom Boardroom, which was the early version. It was the 90-day version of the mastermind that we now do over a year, and has been on this journey with us ever since. And many of you, by the way, I've heard from the team, many of you have joined the mastermind. That's super excellent. What many of you are going to be getting to know Perry, because he's actually a business freedom coach, and he's going to be there to kind of help support that process. So Perry, I really want to thank you for crashing into your day in the middle of everything and joining us and sharing that.
It's always a pleasure.
Thank you so much. Really good to see you.
You too. Take care.
Cheers. Cool. All right, give me another question here if we can go on to another one. And then I think I'm pretty much ready. I think I'm pretty much ready. I think there's some clients that are lined up for live as well, if we've got the tech working, but I'll answer written questions while you queue up a client that I can do a thing with. Are you guys with me?
Yeah.
All right. Casper, How do you, this is a question from Casper, how do you know when you're ready to hire somebody? Okay, we already got that question. It does put a little bit of stress on the business in terms of being able to generate a consistent cash flow, but it might also be what you need to create consistent cash flow. You know what? It's similar to the last question we had, but there is an adjustment. So I'm going to answer Casper's question. So Casper, what often happens to people when they contemplate hiring is they get a budgetary illusion going on. They start feeling like people are an expense, right? And they are. Let's not pretend they're not. But let's remember that they're an investment, right? An employee should be an investment. And so I got a very big lesson in this at one point, because what happened was I had started my company and I was doing all the jobs. And I quit one job where I was a sales guy. And now I was a marketing manager and a sales manager and a tech manager. And I was doing everything, right? And one of the things I had to do was shipping and receiving in the warehouse. And one day I landed this really big contract and I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to do all the work. And I realized it was gonna take me days. And that was gonna be days that I wasn't making sales calls, but I couldn't afford to hire somebody, I thought. And then I don't know what prompted me to do it, but I did a weird little mental exercise on the math. And here's what I found out, is that I could hire somebody to come in and help me with the shipping and receiving, and that it would be about $15 per hour. They were about $15 per hour that I could hire somebody to do that work. And then I also realized that when I was in the sales room, making sales calls, I was bringing in about $800 an hour in revenue. And at that point, our gross margins were running at 80-some-odd%. So that meant that I was actually bringing in about $600 of gross profit per hour when I was on the phone as a salesperson. Now, the problem is that my company was so new that I hadn't really benefited a great deal from this because we had a long sales cycle. But the raw truth of the matter is that I was not hiring somebody at $15 an hour and I was doing the work myself, which meant that in effect, I was losing $585 an hour. So I thought if I could just overcome my fear, if I could just overcome my uncertainty for a little bit, and I could do this, then what would happen is I'd hire this person, he'd come in and do 20 hours of work, which is roughly what I assumed he was gonna need to do. He's gonna put in 20 hours of work. So $15 an hour times 20 hours. So $15 an hour times 20 hours. So we're talking about $300, right? And then I was gonna probably have to invest an hour in training him. So that was gonna cost about $600. So all told, to have him come in and work for me was gonna cost me about $900. But I was gonna save roughly 20 hours of my time that I could invest in the sales room. Somebody help me out. What's 20 hours at $600 an hour? A lot. And so what I began to realize is that people aren't an expense, they're an investment. And so Casper, what I want to suggest to you, and I realize I had a very big delta here, but even if the delta's half, even if you're having to hire somebody and you have to pay them $50 an hour, but you're worth 100, or you have to pay them 100 and you're worth 150, there's a margin in it. This is called leverage. And so I think what really has to happen, Casper, when you're getting ready to make this decision, is you take a look at what the cost of you doing the job instead of doing your highest priority things. Oh, and Casper, it's not only the cost of you doing the job, it's you doing the job that you don't necessarily enjoy, and maybe you're not even all that good at, or even if you are very good at it, you're too busy and you're doing it rushed and not doing it very well, or procrastinating it. So then you really got to take a look and say, doesn't it make sense that I make the investment, even if it's for a part-time project? Bring the person in, let them do the job, then release them from the contract. And then maybe one day you're ready for part-time and so on. So Casper, I hope that flashes that answer out for you a little bit more. All right, next question. We're gonna go live?
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna go to, who are we going to? We're going to Cindy?
Cindy.
Hey, Cindy, I hope you're ready. I'm ready. Cindy is in Louisville, Kentucky. And we're gonna go live.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear
Yay.
me?
I can hear you. Yeah. Thank you, Eric. This has been so fun.
Oh, and it's so good to see you.
Thank you.
Oh, excellent. So, so Heidi, let's talk through. Do we have her information, like the target market and all that stuff? No, that's okay. No, that's okay.
Okay.
You know, yeah, maybe it's better if we do that. I don't know. You guys can figure out the sound. So Heidi, let's jump. So Heidi, let's jump. No.
Cindy.
Sorry,
Cindy.
They popped the slide up and it said Heidi on it. I'm with you, Cindy. Do me a favor. Can you tell me your tell me what you think your overall target market is, your ideal target market, and what your engagement and what your product.
Okay. Okay, so overall is people, and
Yes.
my target would, okay, I'm trying to look at my notes. People that are feeling panicked and overwhelmed and dread, people that wake up feeling that way. That do is some group coaching and retreats, and the retreats would probably be for women, but I know that there are men that would that wake up feeling overwhelmed and in panic. And what was the other question you asked me? I'm sorry.
What's your engagement? What's your current draft of your engagement? What's your current draft of your
Okay. So the engagement is, are you one of the people who wake up feeling panic, overwhelm, and dread? What would your life be instead? You woke up feeling calm and confident. Here are 7 proven strategies.
So Cindy, let's just take a step back. So remember that the more strategic your campaign is, further away from your product, your engagement pitch is. So in other words, right now, your engagement pitch is speaking directly to the product to a large degree. So it's going to be better than traditional marketing. What you're describing will probably work to some degree, but it's extremely obvious. And one of the things about inception marketing is that you're playing a more strategic game. So for example, when you say people, okay, but then you said your ideal target market is women, particularly, let's start with women that wake up with feelings of anxiety or dread. That is not an ideal target market. That actually is closer to an overall target market, because there are married women that wake up with anxiety and dread, and there are single women that have anxiety and dread, just as an example. And let me tell you that married women have different reasons for their anxiety and dread than single women do, right? Like they're totally different reasons for feeling that anxiety and dread. A married woman might be having anxiety and dread because, you know, she's worried about her kids' safety when they go out to school, and she might be, you know, she might be feeling sensitive about that, or, you know, she might be worried about what her husband's up to when he's out late or when he's traveling on business. And remember that, you know, and this is sort of, again, a stereotype, but remember that instinctually for millions of years, if a woman lost her husband for millions of years, it kind of was dangerous, like dangerous to her survival. And so often women have this like inside feeling of insecurity that's actually fueled by a way outdated instinct, but they can have anxiety or dread about it. On the other hand, a single woman, especially if she's starting to feel the pressure of time, she could be having a totally different anxiety or dread. Am I ever going to meet the one? Am I going to be alone forever? So they have these different anxieties, right? So what that means is that you're going to be able to market to them better when you acknowledge those differences and market to those different psychologies. Does this make sense to you?
Makes sense.
Okay. Can I suggest that maybe you pull the sound off this one?
It's the fact that she has speakers on, so when your sound comes through her computer, it feeds back into her.
Yeah, I get it. I just think that because that one might feed back into here, and that one's less likely to feed back. You know, whatever. I'll leave you guys to handle the tech. Okay, so Cindy, what that means is that we want to look at developing tighter ideal. So, you know, for example, you might want to look at single women in particular age groups, because again, a single woman under, say, between 20 and 30 has different reasons for having anxiety and fear than a woman in her 30s, and that's different than a woman in her 40s, and that's different than a woman in her 50s. Does that make sense as well? So what that means is that you've got this ideal target market situation where you could divide by age and end up with a bunch of different decades that you're looking at, and then you could divide those decades up by married or not married, and then you could divide those decades up by married with children, not married with children, right? So when you go into ideal target market, you want to go as narrow as possible, and all you're really looking for is, do I have a market where they're all basically thinking the same things? If you have a market where they're all thinking the same things, then you're going to have a market you can really speak to. So, for example, let's say we took a view on, let's say, married women in their, say, 50s. I'm just randomly picking. So, what might be some of the concerns of a married woman in their 50s? I'd be curious from the audience, right? We talked about surveying, right? So let's get some feedback from the audience. What are some of the concerns or things that might drive a little fear and anxiety for married women in their 50s? What are we getting here?
Finances.
Andrew?
Menopause, finances.
Okay, so they might be thinking about menopause, they're worried about finances.
Health, kids,
Their
lack of
health.
financial security.
Financial security.
Not looking so pretty.
Not looking pretty, being worried about
Job,
aging,
physical body,
job, physical body.
savings skin.
Do you guys see how easy it is to do market research?
Pension, retirement, not enjoying life, parents needing support. That's a good one. If my
Wow.
husband dies not having financial security.
Ooh, what if my husband dies and I don't have financial security?
Oh, outliving my spouse. Ooh.
Outliving my spouse. My wife made me promise. She made me absolutely promise to let her die first. I'm 7 years older than her. The odds are not in her favor, let me tell you. But it is a serious concern. So first of all, guys, did we get a lesson here on the value of market research? Because I don't know what it's like to be a single woman or a married woman of 50 or a single woman of 50 for that matter. I don't know, but I have a better idea now, don't you? And so that's really powerful. Okay, so now, Cindy, you could create about 1 million different engagement pitches speaking to those particular concerns. What if I told you, Cindy, or your market, your target audience, so we're talking about these married women in their 50s. So I said, okay, married women in their 50s, give me 30 minutes and I'll help you feel absolutely solid about your financial future no matter what happens to your spouse. Do you think I might get their attention? Yeah, and then how about this? How about this one? How about this? A 90-day plan to look 10 years younger. Do you think that might appeal to that market? I think it's possible, and we'd have to test it. We could see. What else is there? Let's see. They're not just worried about their husband dying, right? Let's be clear, they're worried about their husband leaving, right? So what if we did something like this?
Can you do it? No.
What's that?
Someone said, can you do it in 30 days?
Okay, so maybe she's worried about her husband leaving, so now we take a different approach. And the approach there would be, let's say something along the lines of, the one reason your husband might stray, and it's not the thing you think it is. You think I might get their attention? I think I might. And then, having got their engagement pitch, right? Cindy, listen, what I might then do is go, boom, they've clicked that, now they're gonna watch my video, read my blog, get my ebook, go to my seminar, whatever. I've got their attention, right? And so from that position, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna say, look, here's the thing. What happens when people have been married for a long time is they start to create a level of familiarity, and sometimes familiarity can breed a certain level of contempt. How that shows up for men is that the same old stories that they keep telling and the same old jokes that they keep telling stop being funny to their wives. And so while many times women are worried about a woman who might appear to be younger or might be prettier or might be showing more cleavage or might have long legs, you think that those are all the triggers that might cause a man to wonder a little bit. Here's the real truth. The real truth is there's nothing sweeter to the ears of a man than the sound of a woman's laugh. Okay, there might be one other sound, but I'm not going to talk about that right now. The sound of a woman's laugh, right? And so the problem is that once a wife has gotten to the point that their husband doesn't really, do it for them from a humor perspective, the stories aren't interesting and the woman's not giving them that attention and not laughing and not paying attention, then what happens at that point is the man actually stops producing as much testosterone, because when a woman laughs and gives a man attention, his testosterone goes up. And of course, as his testosterone goes down, he starts aging, he starts getting older, he starts getting less flexible, his muscle density starts going down. And what's fascinating is that at that point, he starts getting really thirsty for testosterone development. And so what ends up happening then is he goes off and gets a haircut, and the girl cutting his hair, she flirts with him, testosterone. And then he says one of his old jokes that his wife has stopped laughing at, and the young girl laughs. And so she provides a testosterone boost. And at that point, she becomes the source of energy again. Because you see, women are like like the sun, and men are like solar panels. And if you stop shining on your husband, then somebody else is gonna. So it's not the things you think it is. So what I would suggest to you is that what makes it hard for women to pay attention to their husbands, what makes it hard for them to laugh at their jokes still, is that they got a lot of stuff to worry about. And if you're living with a whole lot of anxiety, if you're living with a lot of tension and depression and stress and that kind of stuff, it's hard to be engaged. And then you end up in a really tough feedback loop, where the more anxiety you have, the less attention, the less sunshine you can shine on your husband, and then the more you get the feeling he's getting distant from you, and then the more anxiety you have. And so what I'd like to do is I'd like to share with you a retreat where by the end of 3 days with me in our retreat out there in the forest, I'm going to show you how to handle your anxiety, how to eliminate your depression. And when you come home from that, you're going to see your husband with different eyes. You're going to realize his jokes actually are quite funny. And you're going to smirk when he says them, and you might even laugh. And you're going to notice that within 24 hours of that, you're going to have a different husband. Would you like to sign up for my retreat? Cindy, are you with me? Yeah? Yeah?
Yeah.
All right. So you've seen the way we did that. We're not, you were trying to go after darts. You were like, oh, I'm going after women that have anxiety and depression, so I'm going to have an engagement pitch that says, do you have anxiety and depression? Darts. What I just did is played a game of chess. Does that make sense to you? All right. Cindy, I'm sorry, we're having a little bit of trouble with sound, so I'm not always hearing you. But I hope that that's been helpful for you, and I hope it's been illustrative for everybody else on. Guys, I think that the live thing it's too challenging with the sound. I think we're just going to have to go to written questions. So if you can get Cindy and Gilletta and those guys to give me written stuff, it'll be a lot easier. But the live interaction, we will handle the sound thing last time. This is an experimentation. It was a little bit of fun, but I think we'll just go directly to questions. Oh, you know what? Cindy, would you like to come to the Business Freedom Experience? I believe that Cindy is the grandmother we were talking about the other day, and because, Cindy, I loved your question, and it sounds like you're doing really important work, you just got yourself a free ticket to the Business Freedom Experience. Congratulations. Thank you so very much. All right, I'm going to go to written questions now. This is from Barbara. How do you decide what jobs to keep for yourself versus delegate and train others to do? Also, I heard you should have done all the jobs before delegating them, but that takes a while. Okay. I'll break that down into two parts, Barbara. So how do you decide which jobs to keep for yourself rather than delegate to others? Well, the first rule should be this. Which ones do you like? I mean, that's how it should be. Which ones do you like? Like the law of attraction is very simple. The more you are doing what you love, the more attractive you will be. And so if you have a bunch of different jobs that need to be done, you should be doing the stuff you like. Plus, on top of that, Barbara, please hear me on this. Muhammad Ali, I saw Muhammad Ali say this, and it just made so much sense to me. And he goes, look, imagine this is your life. Can you see? That's your life, okay? How much of your life have you lived already? Well, we've got a bunch of different ages on the call, but I'm just going to average it out. We've lived that much. So that's how much life we have left. All right, I know. You guys, I told you I was never a motivational speaker. I'm a realist over here. That's how much life we have left. All right, how much of that are we going to sleep? Well, about a third of it. So we've got that much life left. Well, wait a minute. Of the life that we have left that we're not going to sleep through, the life that we're going to be awake, how much of that are we going to spend at the office working, right? Probably, again, pretty close to a third of it, or half at least, depending on when we retire. Okay, and then that's what's left. Well, how much of that time are you going to spend going to sit in the dentist's office, waiting in the airport lounge, sitting on the tarmac when the plane won't take off, going to the PTA meetings, or just doing stuff that's just the general manager of your life? So in other words, how much actual life do you have left? Not a lot. And so what I want to say, Barbara, is that if you can figure out how to make your work life absolutely bliss, it's like multiplying the amount of time you have left in your life by 1,000%. Most people are putting their life on hold so that they work so hard, so one day they can have life. No. So the answer, Barbara, is that when you're choosing which jobs to keep for yourself and which jobs to delegate to others, pick the stuff you love. Set your business up so you get to wake up every day and go, I'm so glad that I get to go to the office. I want to be there because the stuff I work on fills me up and I love it. Does this make sense to you? I hope so. Now, the next thing is, and if you do manage to come to one of our live events, you'll go through the mini exits and roll that process with us, but I'll give you a little glimpse. What you should be doing is making a plan so that you don't have to do any of the jobs, ever. Now, you will want to do stuff, that's fine, but you should have a plan where you're prioritizing every job in the business and deciding which order that you're going to replace yourself out. Start with the stuff that you don't like. And by the way, Barbara, I've got such good news for you. You see, I don't like accounting. I don't enjoy it. I'm actually quite good at it. You talk to my accountants, they'll tell you I've got a good grasp of it, or I can talk to an accountant. But ask me to do it, drive me crazy. But the problem is that I'm a nice person. I know I told you I wasn't very nice, but the truth is underneath it all, I'm pretty nice. And here's the thing, that meant that when I had a job that I considered to be a yucky, garbage job, I wouldn't want to delegate it to somebody else because I'm a nice person. I'm like, oh, I don't want to, you know, if I'm not willing to take out the garbage, why would I ask you to take out the garbage? You know, I don't want that. But Barbara, there's not a single job in your company that there isn't somebody out there that loves doing it. I am astounded. Like, there are even people that enjoy accounting. I think somebody dropped them when they were young, but they like it. I'm kidding. My wife is one of them. They love it. Like, they're the kind of people that if there's a problem on the spreadsheet, they just like, they can't even sleep till they solve it. They love it. You know, creative people get this big endorphin rush when they come up with a new idea. Those numbers people, they get the exact same endorphin rush when they solve a mathematical problem that was tough, right? So there are going to be people out there that are going to love every job that you might want to delegate. So first of all, prioritize all the jobs in the business and start delegating out the stuff you dislike the most and keep the stuff that you love for yourself best. All right, I hope that helps. One more thing to your second question. You said you heard that you should have done all the jobs before delegating. I don't think that that's necessarily true, but I do think that you should have a basic operational understanding of every job before you delegate it, because otherwise you won't necessarily know that it's being done properly. And so one of the ways you do that is, like the advice I gave early, is you or whoever's doing that job, you do the job one day, write down every step that's in the job, and that way when you delegate it, the person you're delegating to has a clear roadmap to follow. Thanks very much, Barbara. Great question. Next.
Okay, Eric, on this one, we've had a couple people ask this, and so it's like clothing, physical appearance, body language, if they're not maybe as attractive as you, was one of them.
Oh, I hope the microphone didn't pick that up.
Pretty sure it did.
So can you give that to me in an actual question?
Yeah, so this is like how much do you place on the indirect parts of marketing by that, like physical appearance?
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. So
Sure.
This is a really good point. So
I didn't know how to give you the full context. Okay.
one day I was on stage.
More than one.
So the question here is about the ancillary aspects of your physical attractiveness, and, you know, the way you dress, the way you look, your health, and all that kind of stuff. So let's talk a little bit about that, because one day I was on stage and I was explaining law of attraction to a group of people, and I said, look, if you want law of attraction to work for you, be attractive. But I realized instantly that was wrong, because people didn't understand what I meant by be attractive. They thought that I meant be symmetrical, be slim, dress well, all that stuff. No, what I meant was be attractive in your energy. And this is a very cool thing. Like, I'll tell you something. Women, wow, femininity is the most powerful force in the universe in my mind. And frankly, your physical appearance actually isn't the biggest part of that. Now, I'll be really clear. If somebody is really unhealthy in their appearance, that's a different thing. But even like somebody can be, somebody can even be like quite overweight, but if they have a fundamental degree of health to the way they're, that they've, they have, I don't know what I'm trying to say here, guys, is that physical attractiveness is not the only measure. And in fact, it's only the most superficial level. A woman can walk in the room that would not grace the covers of Vogue magazine. I don't like what we've done around that. I hate that we've done that to women, where they feel like they have to look like that. I mean, remember what it was like with Marilyn Monroe? I mean, okay, I don't remember what it was like with Marilyn Monroe, but I've seen pictures of her. And you know what? She was a plus size woman. She was gorgeous. It was her attitude. And it was also that the fashion of the times allowed for that. And so let's let go of what the fashion of the times say. And let me tell you, as a guy, a woman walks in the room, and when she's exuding feminine energy, and I'm just talking having that gorgeous flow of energy, she is instantly attractive. And I would put to you that the same thing is true with a man, that a man can walk in a room, and as long as he's got a sense of power, a sense of certainty in his being, that he doesn't have to be symmetrical and perfectly physically attractive. It's an energy thing. Now, let's go beyond the energy thing, and let's talk about how you can boost all that stuff up. God, the universe, your parents, your genes gave you where you are today. And it is what it is. And some people are, were gifted aesthetically, and some people weren't, according to our society today. But let's go way beyond that. These are the things that are going to be important around creating attraction out there in the world. The first thing is, take some time to dress well. It matters, guys. My dad had to teach me this lesson. I was a kid, right? I was a kid. And I was in sales, and my shoes, I was doing a lot of door-to-door direct sales, and my shoes were always ratty because I could buy them, and a week later they'd look ratty. Then I learned a very valuable lesson about